What do you say when people ask who the strongest in My Hero Academia is? You tell them to shut the fuck up and look at the sky. Because this kid ate a mythical devil fruit, became unkillable, dog-walked Shigaraki and All for One back-to-back, healed the broken, and still went home to rail Mina every night. Izuku Midoriya isn't just a hero, he's a walking apocalypse with a chill personality. Remember the name.
Welcome, Legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
Let me tell you about the day the world changed. Let me tell you about a boy who was born with nothing, told he was nothing, and then became something that every hero, every villain, and every god walking this earth would have to reckon with. His name is Izuku Midoriya, and this is the story of how a phoenix was born from the ashes of a kid the world threw away. It starts on Dagobah Beach. You know the place. Miles of trash piled so high it blocks the sunset. Nobody goes there. Nobody cares about it, which made it the perfect place for a 10-year-old boy to sit in the sand and cry where nobody could see him. Izuku's hero notebook, the 13th one, the one with All Might's Silver Age costume sketched on the cover in colored pencil, was gone. Bakugo had burned it in front of the entire class that afternoon. Held it up with one hand while sparks popped from the other, and told him to take a swan dive off the roof if he wanted a quirk so bad. So here he was, sand in his shoes, eyes red, stomach empty because he skipped dinner to avoid his mom seeing his face like this. That's when he saw it, a fruit, sitting on the sand like the tide had carried it in as an offering. Swirl patterns etched across its surface in deep, unnatural grooves. It looked like a pineapple designed by someone who had never seen a pineapple, but had one described to them in a fever dream. Purple and gold, with those spirals running in every direction. Izuku picked it up. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since breakfast. He took a bite. The taste hit him like betrayal, like someone had liquefied garbage and mixed it with battery acid and regret. His entire body rejected it. His throat closed. His eyes watered. Every cell in him screamed to spit it out. He swallowed, and he took another bite, and another. Because Izuku Midoriya was a lot of things at 10 years old, small, powerless, crying on a beach alone, but he had never been someone who quit halfway through something. He finished the entire fruit, and for about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then his blood turned to fire, blue, gold, erupting from under his skin like sunrise breaking through clouds. His back arched, his fingers clawed at the sand. Wings, enormous, blazing, impossible wings, tore through the back of his shirt and spread wide enough to throw shadows across the trash heaps. His body burned from the inside out. And it should have hurt, it should have killed him, but it didn't. It felt like waking up. It felt like his body was finally remembering what it was supposed to be. The wings held for 10 seconds. Then they folded back into his skin. The fire dimmed. Izuku lay face down in the sand, breathing hard, shaking, covered in blue embers that faded like dying stars. He sat up. He looked at his hands. Blue flame danced across his knuckles. Warm. Alive. His. And Izuku Midoriya started laughing. Alone on that beach, covered in sand and the remnants of something divine, he laughed until his ribs hurt. That was 6 years ago. The sludge villain incident happened on a Thursday in April. The kind of day where the sky is too blue and the air is too warm and everything feels like nothing important could possibly happen. Izuku was walking home from the convenience store, bag of chips in one hand, phone in the other, earbuds in. His school uniform shirt was unbuttoned at the top, sleeves rolled up to the elbows, jacket slung over one shoulder because the weather demanded it. He'd grown into something over those 6 years. Shoulders wide, frame dense with the kind of muscle that the fruit had layered onto him like armor being forged from the inside. He moved like he was in zero hurry to be anywhere, because he wasn't. He heard the explosion 3 blocks away. He looked up, pulled one earbud out. Smoke rising from the shopping district, orange flame and the distant crackle of something going very wrong. He sighed. He kept walking toward it because that's the direction home was anyway. When he rounded the corner, the scene was already a circus. Pro heroes lining the perimeter. Crowds pushed back behind tape. Kamui Woods with his arms crossed, unable to approach because of the flames. Death Arms flexing his fists uselessly. Mount Lady stuck in her giant form between 2 buildings, unable to get close enough to matter. And in the center of it all, the sludge villain. A massive, roiling mass of green-brown muck with yellow eyes and a mouthful of teeth that shouldn't exist. It had someone wrapped up in its body. Someone small. Someone with spiked blonde hair and murder-red eyes and explosion after explosion ripping from his palms in raw panic. Bakugo. Izuku tilted his head. He looked at the pro heroes standing around doing nothing. He looked at the villain. He looked at Bakugo, thrashing, teeth bared, explosions getting weaker as the sludge squeezed tighter around his throat. He popped a chip into his mouth. What a pain. He exhaled long and slow through his nose. He walked forward. A hero on the perimeter, some sidekick in a yellow costume, grabbed his shoulder. "Hey kid, you can't go in there. It's too dangerous." Izuku looked at the hand on his shoulder, then at the hero. His expression was the definition of unbothered. "It's fine." He shrugged the hand off and walked into the fire zone. The flames didn't touch him. They moved around his body like they recognized something in him that outranked them entirely. Orange fire parted at his shoulders and closed behind him like curtains. The crowd went silent. The heroes went rigid. Every camera in the vicinity locked onto the green-haired teenager walking through an inferno like it was a light drizzle. Izuku stopped 15 feet from the sludge villain. He looked up at it. The villain's eyes found him. Another one? The massive sludge grinned with too many teeth. "Get back, kid, or you're next." "You really need to stop getting into trouble, Yoi." He wasn't talking to the villain. He was talking to Bakugo. Those red eyes, wide with something Bakugo would never admit was fear, locked onto Izuku's face. Recognition hit. Confusion followed immediately. Because the last time Bakugo had seen Izuku Midoriya, the kid was 5'0" and flinching. This was something else entirely. Izuku rolled his shoulders. His jacket fell from his arm and landed on the asphalt behind him. Then the wings came out. They erupted from his back like twin explosions of blue and gold. Massive, sweeping, burning with flame that threw light across every building on the block. Feathers made of pure regenerative fire, each one longer than his arm. The span was enormous, 20 feet tip to tip, and they cast the entire street in blue-gold glow that made the orange fire of the villain look pathetic by comparison. Every single person on that street stopped breathing. The sludge villain froze. Izuku was airborne in one motion. The wings beat once, a single downstroke that cracked the asphalt beneath him, and he shot upward, then forward, closing the distance to the villain in less than a second. The sludge surged. Tendrils of muck launched at him from every direction, wrapping around his arms, his chest, his throat, trying to pull him in the same way it had consumed Bakugo. The sludge touched fire. Everywhere it made contact with Izuku's body, blue flame erupted. The muck boiled. It hissed. It recoiled. The tendrils pulled back like they'd grabbed a hot stove. Because the thing about Izuku Midoriya in this state, in hybrid form, wings out, eyes half-lidded with the kind of calm that comes from knowing you're invincible, is that his body is fire. You can't grab fire. You can't absorb fire. You can only get burned. What are you? The villain screeched, recoiling, tendrils flailing. Izuku didn't answer. He reached into the mass of sludge, arm shifting to burning blue phoenix fire from the elbow down, intangible, unstoppable, and found Bakugo's collar. He pulled. Bakugo came free with a wet, disgusting sound. Izuku held him at arm's length like he was picking up a bag of groceries someone left on the floor, and he tossed Bakugo sideways through the air toward the heroes with enough arc to make the landing survivable. Death Arms caught him. Barely. Izuku turned back to the sludge villain. "All right." He rolled his neck. "Let's finish this, Yoi." The villain lunged. Everything it had, every ounce of mass and rage and desperation, surging forward in a wave. Izuku pivoted on his heel, body rotating, and his leg came up in a spinning kick that ignited with blue flame from hip to toe. The impact connected with the villain's central mass, with the eye, the weak point, the part that screamed, and the concussion blew the sludge apart. 3 city blocks. Sludge rained down like the world's worst thunderstorm. Chunks of villains splattered against buildings, but against cars, against the hero's barriers. The force of the kick created a wind tunnel that blew hair and debris backward and made the crowd behind the tape stumble. Izuku landed. 1 foot down, wings folding behind him, the feathers drawing back into his shoulder blades and disappearing like they were never there. He stood in the center of a crater that hadn't existed 30 seconds ago. A cut on his cheek, a piece of debris, maybe. Glowed blue for half a second and sealed shut. Gone before it could bleed. He looked at the crowd, he looked at the heroes, he looked at the cameras that were rolling, that had captured every second of this. He scratched the back of his head. Someone should probably bottle that guy up before he reforms, Yoi. The crowd erupted, screaming, crying, phones in the air, recording, shaking. Some woman in the front row fainted. A kid on someone's shoulders was pointing and yelling, "Phoenix! Phoenix! Phoenix!" over and over. The pro-heroes scrambled. Kamui Woods was already collecting the scattered sludge. Death Arms was checking Bakugo's vitals. Mount Lady had shrunk back to normal size and was staring at Izuku with her mouth open. And in the back of the crowd, standing behind everyone, wearing civilian clothes and a baseball cap pulled low, All Might watched. His sunken eyes were wide. His thin fingers were shaking at his sides. Because he'd been about to intervene, he'd been about to push past his time limit to go plus ultra one more time against a villain he'd let escape earlier that day, and a 16-year-old boy had just handled it like it was an inconvenience. Those flames, that regeneration, that power. It wasn't a quirk All Might recognized. It wasn't anything he had ever seen in 40 years of heroism. It was something else. Something older. Something that operated on rules the world of quirks had never written. Toshinori Yagi removed his cap. He ran a hand through his blonde hair. He said nothing. But his eyes followed the green-haired boy all the way down the street until Izuku turned the corner, bag of chips somehow still intact in his hand, walking like nothing had happened. That video hit the internet 40 minutes later, 12 million views in 2 hours. Trending in every country that had internet access. Mysterious Phoenix teen destroys villain in seconds. Who is the Blue Flame Kid? New hero? Vigilante? Something else? The world learned Izuku Midoriya's face that day. They just didn't know his name yet. They would. Bakugo found him the next day at school, slammed both palms on Izuku's desk hard enough to leave scorch marks. "What the hell was that yesterday, Midoriya?" The classroom went silent. Everyone knew. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone had spent the entire morning stealing glances at the green-haired boy in the back row who had apparently been hiding wings made of blue fire for God knows how long. Izuku looked up from his phone, one earbud still in. His expression was the same as always, slightly drowsy, mildly amused, like the world was a movie he was watching from a comfortable couch. "What was what, Bakugo? Don't play dumb with me." More sparks. More volume. "You were quirkless. You were nothing. You don't just suddenly..." Bakugo. Izuku's voice didn't change volume, didn't gain edge, but something in it made Bakugo's jaw click shut mid-sentence. "I pulled you out of a villain yesterday. The words you're looking for are thank you. You can say them whenever you're ready, Yoi." He put his earbud back in and looked at his phone again. Bakugo stood there, sparking, shaking, every vein in his forehead visible. The class held its breath. Then Bakugo turned and walked back to his desk without saying a word. He didn't talk to Izuku again for the rest of the semester. 3 weeks later, Izuku stood outside the gates of UA High School on the morning of the entrance exam. He was early. Barely anyone else was there. The building loomed massive and glass-fronted against the morning sky, and Izuku looked at it with the kind of mild appreciation you'd give a nice sunset. Pleasant, temporary, moving on. Then a voice, high energy, coming in hot from his left side. "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" He turned, pink skin, yellow horns, black and gold eyes, pink hair cut short and wild, a grin so wide it was practically structural. She was speed-walking toward him with purpose, the kind of purpose that said she'd spotted him from across the courtyard and changed her entire trajectory. "It's you! You're the Phoenix guy from the video, the sludge villain thing. Izuku blinked. I've watched it like 18 times. 18. My friend Toru was like, Mina, stop rewatching it. And I was like, Toru, you don't understand. Look at this man's wings. Thanks. I'm Mina Ashido. She thrust a hand at him. Her skin was warm and slightly textured, the acid thing, probably. Her grip was strong. She pumped his hand up and down with the enthusiasm of someone meeting a celebrity at the grocery store. You're applying here too? Of course you are. Why wouldn't you? Oh man, everyone's gonna flip when they see you. Izuku let her shake his hand. He looked at her. At the yellow horns, the golden black eyes, the absolute zero hesitation in everything she was doing. A smile pulled at the corner of his mouth, just slightly. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku, she said it like she was tasting it. Can I walk in with you? I'm gonna walk in with you. Come on. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the gates. Izuku let her. His pace didn't change. His expression stayed the same, drowsy half smile. But his eyes, usually half shut, perpetually somewhere between asleep and unbothered, were open a fraction wider. They walked in together. The auditorium was packed. Present Mike was on stage doing his thing, loud, animated, explaining the exam format with enough energy to power a small city. Izuku slouched in his seat. Mina was next to him, bouncing her knee, whispering commentary about every robot type being displayed on screen. The three-pointer looks mean. You think it's mean? I bet it's mean. It's a robot, Yoi. A mean robot. She grinned at him. He exhaled through his nose, amused. From 2 rows down, a tall boy with glasses and sharp features, Ida Tenya, Izuku would learn later, stood up and asked a pointed question about the 0-pointer listed on screen. Present Mike explained it was worth no points, an obstacle to be avoided. Izuku looked at the 0-pointer's silhouette on screen. Massive. Building-sized. The exam began 30 minutes later. The students were shuffled into different testing zones. Izuku and Mina ended up in the same battleground. She pumped both fists in the air when she found out. Ida was there too, a brunette girl with a round face who looked like she was about to throw up from nerves. Start! Present Mike's voice boomed from speakers mounted on the walls of the fake city. Everyone ran forward. Panic energy. Scrambling for points. Explosions and powers going off in every direction as hundreds of students crashed into the first wave of robots. Izuku stood at the starting line. He put his hands in his pockets. He rolled his shoulders and the wings came out. Blue and gold. Blazing. Filling the space behind him with living fire. 3 students who hadn't started running yet turned to look and immediately forgot about the exam. Izuku pushed off the ground. 1 lazy wing beat. 2. Then he was airborne. 40 feet up, drifting over the cityscape like a bird riding thermals, looking down at the chaos below with the energy of someone watching ants build a hill. Let's get this over with. He folded his wings and dove. The first robot, a 2-pointer, big, armored, firing rubber rounds from mounted turrets, looked up just in time to see a blazing comet of blue fire dropping toward it at terminal velocity. Izuku's foot connected with its chassis center mass. The robot didn't crumble. It exploded. The internal mechanisms couldn't handle the force. Pieces flew in every direction, trailing sparks and smoke. Izuku was already airborne again. Next target, 3-pointer. His arm shifted mid-flight, human flesh giving way to blue phoenix fire from the elbow down, talons forming where fingers used to be. He raked across the robot's sensor array and tore it clean from the body. The machine staggered, blind, and then he put his heel through its chest plate on the way past. From below, Mina was skating on her acid, fast, fluid, beautiful in motion. She melted through a 1-pointer's legs and punched the sensor cluster off a 2-pointer, and she was good, really good. But every few seconds, her eyes drifted upward, to the blue streak cutting through robots like they were made of paper. She was grinning. Izuku carved through the exam. Every robot that came within range got destroyed with the minimum number of moves required to take it down. A kick, a wing swipe, a dive that ended with his heel through a processor. He wasn't showing off. He was just efficient, and it looked effortless. And that made it more impressive than showmanship ever could. A missile hit him in minute 4. A 3-pointer had tracked his flight path and fired a full-size projectile, rubber-tipped but traveling at speed, heavy, designed to simulate real combat. It caught him center mass, punched through his chest, through his chest. Izuku jerked backward midair. The projectile exited through his back, trailing blood and fabric. For one horrible second, there was a hole in his torso the size of a softball, visible daylight through his body. 3 students on the street below stopped running. One of them, a boy with a tail, dropped to his knees. A girl with earphone jacks dangling from her ears covered her mouth with both hands. Someone screamed. Whoosh! The blue flame poured into the wound from every direction, like water rushing to fill a gap, like his body refused to acknowledge the injury had ever existed. The hole closed in under 2 seconds. Muscle rebuilding, skin sealing, the torn fabric of his uniform knitting itself back together because even the clothes regenerated, soaked in his flame. Izuku floated there, looked down at his chest, scratched his head with one talon. That tickled. Silence from below. Absolute, brain-breaking silence. Then Kaminari's voice from somewhere 3 blocks away. Did that guy just get shot through the chest and say it tickled? The exam continued. Izuku continued to demolish robots. The students below continued to have their understanding of power recalibrated in real time. In the monitoring booth, the UA staff watched on screens. Recovery Girl, Midnight, Snipe, Cementos, all of them, every single one of them sitting completely still, eyes locked on the green-haired boy flying through the battleground trailing blue fire. Present Mike was standing behind his chair because at some point he'd gotten up and forgotten to sit back down. He swallowed. That's a student? That's a kid? Snipe adjusted his hat. What quirk is that listed as on his application? Someone shuffled papers. It says, a pause, mythical zone, phoenix type. That's what it says. What the hell does that mean? Nobody had an answer. Then the ground shook. The 0-pointer emerged, rising from behind the buildings at the far end of the testing zone like a monster from ancient mythology. Metal and hydraulics and a mass so large it blotted out the sky. Its treads crushed buildings flat. Its arms swung and leveled city blocks. The shadow it cast turned noon into evening. Students ran. Every single one of them turned and sprinted in the opposite direction. Izuku hovered. He watched the robot advance. He watched the tiny figures below scrambling away from it. He watched. There, the brunette girl, Uraraka, pinned under a chunk of rubble that the 0-pointer had knocked loose. She was pushing at the concrete slab across her leg, face twisted, trying to use her quirk but unable to focus through the pain. Izuku sighed, a long, full-body exhale, the kind of sigh a person releases when they realize their lunch break just got interrupted. All right, Yoi. He rose higher, the wings beat once, twice, 3 times, and with each stroke he climbed and the flames around him burned brighter. Hotter, bigger. He ascended until he was level with the 0-pointer's head. That massive face, cameras for eyes, steel for skin, 100 feet of war machine staring at the tiny glowing figure in front of it. Izuku's body changed. The transformation started at his core and exploded outward. His human shape stretched, expanded, erupted into blue and gold fire that grew and grew until it wasn't a boy floating there anymore. It was a bird, a phoenix. Wings that spanned 60 feet, talons the size of cars. A body made entirely of blazing resurrection flame, beautiful and terrible, and impossible to look at directly. The sheer light of it turned the testing ground blue. Students below shielded their eyes, some fell to their knees. In the monitoring booth, Midnight's pen fell from her fingers and rolled off the desk. Nobody picked it up. The phoenix, Izuku, let out a cry. A sound that resonated in the bones of everyone within a mile. Ancient, powerful. The kind of sound that makes the animal part of your brain tell you to lay flat and stay still. Then he grabbed the 0-pointer by the head. Those talons, each one as long as a car, burning with regenerative fire, strong enough to bend steel like aluminum, clamped around the robot's faceplate. The machine's sensors overloaded. Sparks flew. Metal shrieked. Izuku's wings beat. Once. The downforce cracked the street 200 feet below. Twice. The 0-pointer tilted. 3 times. And the 100-ton machine was airborne. Izuku lifted it, carried it upward by the face. The crowd in the stands, parents, spectators, journalists, stood from their seats. He threw it. The 0-pointer sailed over the boundary wall of the testing zone, over the tree line, over the empty lot behind the campus, and crashed somewhere in a distant field with a sound like thunder rolling across the earth. A cloud of dust and debris mushroomed upward from the impact site. The ground shook for a full 3 seconds. The testing ground was silent. Izuku descended. The phoenix form shrank, compacted, drew inward until it was a boy again. Green hair, half-lidded eyes, uniform slightly more singed than before, but already regenerating the burns. He landed next to Uraraka. "You okay?" She stared up at him. Her mouth was open. Her eyes were the size of dinner plates. She was floating, actually floating 3 inches off the ground because she'd touched herself with all 5 fingers at some point during the spectacle and activated her own quirk by accident. What? Izuku put one hand on her shoulder and pushed her gently back down to the ground. His other hand glowed blue. He placed it on the rubble, pinning her leg, and the fire spread warm, painless, over the scrapes and bruises on her skin. They closed. They healed. Within seconds, she was fine. Better than fine. There you go. How? Rest, Yoi. Exam's over. He straightened up, turned around, and Mina was already there, standing 5 feet away, covered in acid residue and robot oil and grinning so wide it looked like her face might split. "That," she said, pointing at him, "was the coolest thing I have ever seen. In my life." Izuku slid his hands into his pockets. "It was a robot. You threw it. It was in the way. Across a field. It was a big robot." She grabbed his arm with both hands and leaned into him, bouncing on her heels. "We are both getting into this school, and you're going to sit next to me every single day, or I will riot." Izuku looked at her, at the pink skin flushed darker across her cheeks, at the golden eyes sparkling with absolute unfiltered delight, at the way she'd latched onto his arm like she'd claimed territory. His mouth twitched. A real smile. Small, but real. "Sure, Yoi." In the principal's office, an hour later, Nezu, that genius animal in a suit, sat before a screen replaying the entrance exam footage for the 9th time. His paw tapped against his desk. His eyes were bright with something that went beyond mere interest. He pulled up Izuku Midoriya's application file. Medical records. Quirk registration submitted at age 11, classified as transformation type, details pending full assessment. Nezu tilted his head. His tail swished. How very interesting. He picked up his phone. "Get me Aizawa." Results came in a week later. Izuku scored 77 villain points and 60 rescue points. The highest combined score in the history of the UA entrance exam. Mina called him 17 seconds after she received her own acceptance letter. He answered on the second ring. We're in. Congratulations, Ashido. Mina, it's Mina. We held hands on the first day. We're past last names. Congratulations, Mina. Say it excited. Congratulations, Mina. Same tone, same pace, but something warm in it. You're impossible, and I love it. See you on the first day. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. Izuku looked at his phone, at the call-ended screen, at the little pink contact icon she'd programmed into his phone when he wasn't looking, complete with a horn emoji next to her name. He exhaled. What a pain, Yoi. He was smiling when he said it. First day of UA Class 1A. The door was enormous. The hallway was enormous. Everything about this school was built for people who would one day be enormous, and Izuku found that mildly amusing. He walked in late. 3 minutes passed. The classroom was already full. 20 seats arranged in rows, 19 of them occupied by students who all turned to look at him when the door opened. A man in a yellow sleeping bag was lying on the floor at the front of the room. Dark hair, tired eyes, a look that said he would rather be anywhere else on the planet. This was Aizawa Shoda, their homeroom teacher, and he assessed Izuku in the doorway with the same energy a cat assesses a new piece of furniture. You're late. I got lost, Yoi. This is the largest door in the building. Very confusing building. A pause. Aizawa's eye twitched. Sit down, Midoriya. Izuku walked to his desk. As he passed, heads turned. Whispers erupted. That's him. The Phoenix kid. Did you see the entrance exam footage? He threw the 0-pointer. Mina was in the seat next to his. She'd saved it. Her bag was on the chair, and she swept it off with a dramatic flourish the moment he approached. She patted the seat. Saved you a spot. You didn't have to. And yet, here we are. She beamed. He sat. Mina immediately leaned her chair toward his, closing the gap between their desks to approximately nothing. Aizawa stood, the sleeping bag pooled at his feet. He looked at the class with an expression that communicated deep and profound regret about his career choices. Put on your gym uniforms. We're going outside. Quirk assessment test. Uraraka's hand shot up. But orientation? The ceremony? Waste of time. My class, my rules. Outside in 5 minutes. His eyes landed on Izuku for a moment, lingered, then moved on. Go. The quirk assessment test, an open field behind the school, 20 students in blue gym uniforms. Aizawa standing before them with a tablet and a ball. You all have been coddled. He didn't mince words. The education system measures your potential without letting you use your quirks. That changes now. 50-meter dash, grip strength, ball throw, side steps, sit-ups, distance run, seated toe touch, standing long jump, all with your quirks. He looked at the class. Whoever places last gets expelled. Panic. Immediate and visceral. Most of the class went pale. Someone, Mineta, made a sound like a deflating balloon. Izuku stood in the back of the group with his hands in his pockets. His expression hadn't changed. We'll start with the ball throw. Aizawa held up the ball. Bakugo, you're first. Bakugo stepped forward, took the ball, wound up, and unleashed everything he had. Explosion propelling the ball forward with a concussive bang that echoed off the school buildings. The tablet beeped. 705.2 meters. The class murmured. Impressed. Bakugo grinned like he'd won something. Aizawa's eyes moved. Midoriya, you're next. Izuku walked forward. He took the ball from Aizawa's hand. Their eyes met for a moment. Something passed between them. Assessment, measurement, the teacher trying to get a read on the student. Izuku stepped into the circle. He tossed the ball up once, caught it. Then Aizawa's eyes flared red. The scarf lifted. Erasure activated, the power that could shut down any quirk with a look that had defeated villains and students alike for over a decade. He stared at Izuku. Izuku stared back. Nothing happened. Blue fire licked lazily at Izuku's fingertips. Still burning, still present, unaffected, unchanged. Aizawa's eyes widened. He blinked, broke the erasure, and reactivated it. Full force. His hair lifting, his gaze locked, every ounce of his power focused on the green-haired boy standing 15 feet away. The flames burned on. A third time, Aizawa pushed harder. Izuku tilted his head. Something wrong with your eyes, Sensei? The class was watching. Every single student frozen in place, watching their teacher stare down a student with increasing desperation and getting absolutely nothing for it. Kaminari leaned toward Kirishima. Wait, is Sensei trying to erase his quirk? I think he is. Is it working? Does it look like it's working? Aizawa released his hold. His eyes burned. His hair fell. He stared at Izuku the way you'd stare at a math equation that just produced a negative number for no reason. Your ability. His voice was low, measured. It doesn't respond to erasure. Seems that way, Yoi. That shouldn't be possible. Izuku shrugged. I don't make the rules. Aizawa stood very still for a very long moment. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a notebook, wrote something in it, and underlined it twice. Throw the ball, Midoriya. Izuku turned back to the circle. He bounced the ball once more. His arm shifted. Just the arm, just from the elbow down, into blue phoenix flame. Feathered, blazing. The muscles visible even through the fire, dense and powerful, he threw. The ball left his hand with a sound like a thunderclap. It flew, straight, true, burning a trail of blue flame through the air, until it was a dot, until it was nothing, until it was beyond what the naked eye could track. The tablet beeped. It kept beeping. The number climbed and climbed and climbed. Aizawa looked at the screen. His face went through several stages of something. He turned the tablet toward the class. Infinity, Kaminari read aloud. It says infinity. It says what? Sero leaned forward. The ball is still going. Aizawa's voice was flat. It left the testing range. It left the campus range. The tracker lost it at 3.2 kilometers, and it was still climbing. Silence. Then Mina broke it. That's my boy! Go! Izuku walked back to the group. His arm was human again. He put his hands back in his pockets. Bakugo was staring. His jaw was working. His fists were sparking. His eyes were locked on Izuku with something volcanic building behind them. Midoriya. Izuku looked at him. Fight me. The class drew a collective breath. Fight me right now. I don't know what the hell you are. I don't know where you got that power, but I'm gonna blow you apart. He charged, palms forward. Explosion already building. The heat wave rippling outward, his face twisted in fury, moving with speed that was genuinely impressive for a first-year student. He detonated both palms point blank into Izuku's face. The explosion was massive, orange and red and furious. It engulfed Izuku's entire head and upper body. The shockwave blew students backward. Sero grabbed Jiro's arm. Uraraka grabbed Mina's shoulder. Dust and smoke billowed outward. Bakugo stood in the aftermath, palms smoking, chest heaving. He'd given it everything. Full power, point blank. There was nothing left of the space where Izuku's head had been. The smoke cleared. Izuku's face rebuilt itself from blue fire. Layer by layer, bone, muscle, skin, all of it knitting back together in that beautiful, terrible cascade of blue and gold flame. 2 seconds, maybe less. His eyes reformed last, and they were open. All the way open. Looking at Bakugo, he grabbed Bakugo's wrist. The motion was fast, faster than anyone could react to. One moment, Bakugo was standing there with his palm still smoking, and the next moment, Izuku's hand was locked around his wrist like a steel clamp. Bakugo tried to fire another explosion. The sparks popped uselessly against Izuku's palm. The heat meant nothing. Izuku twisted. His hip moved. His leg came up. A single sweeping kick to the back of Bakugo's knees. And the blonde boy hit the dirt face first with a sound that made everyone wince. Izuku held the wrist for another second, standing over Bakugo in the dirt. "Your explosion's too hot, Kachan." The name dripped. "Cool down, Yoi." He let go, stepped back, slid his hands into his pockets. Bakugo lay in the dirt. His body was shaking. His face was pressed against the ground, and nobody could see his expression, which was probably a mercy. The class stood in varying stages of existential crisis. Kirishima whispered, "He took a full explosion to the face and didn't even." He didn't flinch, Tokoyami confirmed. He healed before the smoke even cleared. And then he just one move. Sero gestured helplessly. Bakugo didn't even get a second shot. "What is he?" Jiro asked. Nobody had an answer. Mina had her phone out, recording. "This is going in the group chat," she announced to nobody in particular. Aizawa looked at the scene. The crater where Bakugo's explosion had gone off. The boy in the dirt. The green-haired student standing unbothered at the center of it all. He wrote something else in his notebook, underlined it 3 times. The rest of the quirk assessment test was a formality. Izuku placed first in every single event. The 50-meter dash was instantaneous in Phoenix form. The grip test broke the machine. The sidesteps were a blur of hybrid form speed. Every event, every measurement, first place. By margins that weren't close. Nobody was expelled. Aizawa said the expulsion threat was a logical ruse to motivate them. But his eyes kept drifting back to Izuku for the rest of the afternoon, and there was something in that gaze that was equal parts fascination and wariness. The days that followed were strange, for everyone except Izuku. For Izuku, they were exactly what he expected. Classes, training, lunch, Mina grabbing his arm in the hallway, going home, waking up, doing it again. He moved through UA with the same unhurried pace he moved through everything else. He answered questions in class when called on. He ate lunch at the same spot every day. He kept his eyes half shut and his posture relaxed. For everyone else, having Izuku Midoriya in Class 1A was like attending school with a sleeping dragon. You knew what he was. You saw what he could do. You watched it every day in training exercises where he ended scenarios in seconds. But he was so mellow about it, so unbothered. It was unnerving and reassuring in equal measure. Mina had planted her flag and she was keeping it there. She sat next to him in every class. She ate lunch across from him. She walked with him between periods, talking constantly about training, about music, about which pro heroes had the best costumes, about whether Aizawa slept in that sleeping bag at home or just at school. Izuku answered everything. Short, smooth, usually with that half smile pulling at his mouth. You know, Midnight's hero costume is basically just Mina. What? It's public information. We're in public, Yoi. I said what I said. She poked his shoulder. He exhaled. She grinned. It was becoming a routine, one that Izuku was clearly, to anyone watching carefully, allowing. Encouraging, even. In his way, Tsuyu noticed first. You like her, Ribbit. Izuku looked at the frog girl. They were in the common area, Mina temporarily absent to retrieve a forgotten textbook. She's loud, Yoi. That's not a denial, Ribbit. No, it's not. Tsuyu smiled, said nothing else. When Mina came back and immediately draped herself across the couch next to Izuku, practically using his shoulder as a pillow while she complained about Present Mike's English homework, Tsuyu caught Izuku's eye across the room. He looked away first. The healing moment happened during combat training. All Might was teaching the class. Heroic battle simulations, indoor combat exercises. Teams of 2. Villains versus heroes. Standard stuff. Mina was paired with Kirishima against Tokoyami and Koda. The exercise went sideways when Dark Shadow in the enclosed darkness of the building interior got too aggressive. It happened fast. A sweep of shadow that was supposed to pin but instead struck, catching Mina across the forearm with enough force to slam her into a concrete pillar. She yelped, hit the wall, slid down it. The exercise was paused immediately. All Might's voice boomed through the speaker. Recovery Girl was called, but Izuku was already moving. He'd been in the observation room with the rest of the class. He was through the door before anyone processed that he'd stood up. Down the hallway. Into the exercise building. Moving with a speed that he almost never showed. Long strides, wings flickering at his back, face entirely awake. He found her sitting against the pillar, cradling her forearm. The skin was torn, a gash from elbow to wrist where the impact had split it. Blood running between her fingers, mixing with trace amounts of acid from her natural secretion. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was bleeding and it was painful, and she was making a face that Izuku decided he never wanted to see again. Hey. He knelt in front of her. Oh, Izuku, I'm fine. It's just a scratch. Let me see. She extended her arm. The gash was ugly, muscle visible at the deepest point. She was being incredibly brave about it, smile still trying to maintain itself, but her fingers were trembling. Izuku took her arm in both hands. Gentle. His grip was warm. Blue fire blossomed from his palms. It spread over her forearm like water flowing downstream, gentle, warm, filling the wound from the bottom up. The sensation made Mina gasp. It was heat, but it was comfort heat. Bath heat. Summer sun on your skin heat. The blue flame licked along the torn edges of her skin and pushed them back together. New tissue formed underneath, pink and healthy and whole. 5 seconds. The wound closed completely. The blood remained on her skin, but the gash beneath it was gone, like it had never existed. The skin was smooth and warm where his fire had touched. Izuku held her arm for 1 second longer than strictly necessary. His thumb brushed over where the wound had been, checking. There. Mina was staring at him. Her face was a shade of pink that had nothing to do with her skin color. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was slightly open. She was looking at him like she'd just noticed something for the first time, or maybe like she'd known it all along and just needed this moment to confirm it. You? She blinked. That didn't hurt at all. It's healing fire. It's supposed to feel good. It felt really good. They were very close, kneeling on the floor of a training building, her arm still resting in his hands, his blue eyes meeting her golden ones. The moment stretched, filled with warmth, both literal and otherwise. Then Mina's smile came back, bigger than before, softer somehow. My hero, she said, and she meant it. Izuku let go of her arm, stood, offered her a hand up. She took it and popped to her feet, bouncing immediately, testing the arm, finding it perfect. You're incredible, you know that? I've been told, Yoi. I'm telling you again, get used to it. She bumped her hip against his and walked out of the building ahead of him, waving her healed arm above her head so the class watching from the observation room could see. Izuku followed, hands in pockets, half smile in place, but his ears were slightly red. If you knew where to look, 2 weeks into the semester, the USJ happened. The unforeseen simulation joint, a massive training facility designed to simulate natural disasters, floods, fires, landslides, storms. Class 1A was scheduled for a rescue training exercise. Bus ride over. 13, giving the intro speech. Everything normal, everything routine. Then the air split open. The swirling purple portal appeared at the center of the facility, like a wound in the world. Through it, figures, dozens, then hundreds. Villains pouring through a warp gate with weapons and quirks and killing intent radiating off them like a stench. A man made of hands stepped forward. Pale, twitching, fingers scratching at his own neck. Where's All Might? His voice was petulant, childish, dangerous. He's supposed to be here, the schedule behind him, a thing. Massive, bird-headed, muscled like something engineered for destruction. Its brain was exposed, its eyes were empty. The Nomu Izawa moved first. Everyone stay back. 13, protect the students. He leapt from the top of the stairs. Scarf, billowing, goggles down. He hit the ground floor running and started systematically dismantling villains with the kind of combat efficiency that reminded everyone he was a pro for very good reasons. Erasure deactivated quirks. Binding cloth restrained bodies. Elbow strikes. Knee strikes. takedowns. But there were too many. And the Nomu was approaching. It hit Aizawa with a backhand that broke his arm in 3 places. He rolled, tried to stand. It grabbed his face and drove him into the concrete floor. The ground cracked. Blood sprayed. Izuku watched from the top of the stairs. His eyes were open. All the way open. Mina grabbed his arm. Izuku, I know. His voice was different. The lazy drawl was gone. What was underneath was firm, certain, warm in a way that had teeth behind it. Stay with the class. Keep everyone together. What are you going to... He was already gone. The wings erupted, blue and gold, filling the air above the USJ with light as Izuku launched himself from the stairs and crossed the distance to the central plaza in 3 wing beats. He dropped from the sky like a falling star and landed between the Nomu and Aizawa's broken body with enough force to crack the concrete beneath his feet. The hand villain, Shigaraki, tilted his head. What's this? Izuku knelt. His hands pressed against Aizawa's shattered forearm, his crushed elbow, the places where bone was visible through torn skin. Blue fire spread from his palms and wrapped around the injuries like bandages made of starlight. The bleeding stopped. The bone fragments held still. Aizawa gasped, a wet, ragged sound. I can stabilize you, sensei. Izuku's voice was low, only for Aizawa. The breaks won't worsen. Hold on. Aizawa's one functional eye stared up at his student. The fire was warm on his skin. The pain was receding. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe gratitude, maybe a warning. Stay back. Izuku rose. His hands left Aizawa's body and the blue glow faded to a gentle simmer over the wrapped wounds. This one is actually dangerous. He turned to face the Nomu. The thing was massive. 7 feet of exposed muscle and engineered rage. It was already moving, already swinging, its fist coming around in an arc that would have pulverized concrete. It connected with Izuku's jaw. The sound was horrific, bone-cracking, jaw dislocating, head snapping sideways at an angle that made Uraraka, watching from the stairs, hands pressed over her mouth, look away entirely. The force launched Izuku sideways, feet leaving the ground, body tumbling across the concrete. From the stairs, the class watched in horror. Midoriya! Multiple voices. Panic. Kirishima leaned forward. Oh god, Whoosh! The blue flames erupted before Izuku stopped sliding. His jaw rebuilt mid-tumble, his neck straightened, his spine realigned. He rolled to his feet in one fluid motion, face completely intact, completely healed, wearing an expression that had shifted from cool neutrality to something sharper. Interested. Shock absorption. He rolled his neck to the left, then the right. The vertebrae popped like a series of small firecrackers. Let's find out where it ends, Yoi. He charged. What followed was violence on a scale that Class 1A had never witnessed. That most pro-heroes had never witnessed. Izuku's body shifted into hybrid form mid-sprint. Wings blazing at his back. Arms engulfed in blue flame from elbow to talon tip. His feet burned through the concrete as he closed distance and launched himself at the Nomu with everything. His first strike, a right talon rake across the Nomu's chest, tore through engineered skin and muscle and sent black blood spraying. The Nomu didn't flinch. It swung. Izuku took the hit to his rib cage. Ribs shattered, reformed, shattered again from the follow-up, and responded with a spinning kick to the creature's knee that buckled it sideways. The Nomu adapted. It was fast, faster than something that size should be. Its fist caught Izuku's temple. Skull fragments for a tenth of a second, then blue fire, then whole. A backhand caught his torso and sent him cratering into a pillar. The pillar exploded around him. He emerged from the rubble already healed, already moving. Izuku's wings beat, propelling him forward at speed, and he drove both talons into the Nomu's shoulders. Flaming tips punched through muscle and hooked against bone. He lifted, wings straining. The Nomu weighed hundreds of pounds of pure genetic nightmare, and Izuku lifted off the ground and slammed it into the concrete spine first. The impact created a crater. The Nomu's shock absorption groaned. Izuku was on top of it immediately, knee driving into its stomach, talons raking across its face, blue fire searing the wounds and preventing the regeneration from closing them cleanly. Because here was the thing. The Nomu could regenerate. But Izuku could regenerate faster. And every wound Izuku inflicted was laced with phoenix fire that fought the healing factor on a cellular level. The Nomu threw him off. Both arms, full force, launching Izuku into the air. He caught himself on his wings, hovered, looked down at the creature as it stood. It was damaged, trailing blue fire from cuts that were slow to close. Its movements were a fraction less coordinated. Getting tired? Izuku asked from above. The Nomu roared. The sound shook the building. Izuku dove, straight down, fist first. His entire arm wreathed in blue flame so intense it was almost white at the core. He hit the Nomu in the center of its exposed brain. The impact drove the creature 6 inches into the concrete. The shock absorption could handle physical force, sure. But the fire burned. And the fire didn't stop. He hit it again. Same spot. The Nomu's arms came up. Izuku caught one with a wing made of fire, intangible, uncatchable, and twisted his body to deliver a knee to the thing's jaw. Teeth shattered. The Nomu staggered. From the stairs, the class watched this in absolute silence. Todoroki stood near the front. His left side, the fire side, was cold. His right, the ice side, had a thin layer of frost forming on his fingers. He'd started to move toward the fight 3 times and stopped each time. Because what was happening down there was beyond him. He knew it. It burned. But he knew it. Mina had her hands together, pressed against her chest. Her eyes tracked every movement Izuku made, every hit he took. Every time the blue fire surged and healed, and he kept fighting. She was scared, she realized. Actually scared. Even though she'd seen him heal 100 times. Even though she knew what he was, because the Nomu was hitting hard. And watching Izuku's body break, even for a fraction of a second, was something she never got used to. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, Izuku." Below, the fight intensified. Izuku had found a rhythm. Take a hit, heal, counter with twice the force. The Nomu was engineered to fight all might. It was built for one exchange of overwhelming power. It was built to absorb hits and hit back. It was absolutely not built for a fight of attrition against something that healed faster than it could damage. Izuku's talon raked across the Nomu's throat. Blue fire poured into the wound. The regeneration tried to close it. The fire fought it. The Nomu stumbled. Izuku kicked it in the chest, a full-force, phoenix flame-wreathed kick that sent the massive creature sliding back 20 feet, tearing grooves in the concrete. Shigaraki was watching from behind the thing. His fingers were scratching faster at his neck. His voice was getting higher. "Kill him! Kill him! Nomu! Kill him!" The Nomu charged. Both arms up, full power, every ounce of strength its engineered body could produce. Izuku met it in the middle. Their collision shook the building. The ground beneath them didn't crack. It collapsed. A 10-foot crater forming instantly as the force of their exchange drove downward through the foundation. Izuku's arms were crossed in front of him, absorbing the blow, blue fire blazing, feet skidding back but holding. The Nomu pressed. Izuku pressed back. And then, Izuku's wings flared, full span, blue and gold filling the USJ like daylight breaking through clouds. The sheer force of the wing beat hit the Nomu like a wall of pressure, driving it backward. Izuku stepped into the gap. His fist came around, right hook, wreathed in so much flame it left a trail in the air, and connected with the Nomu's jaw. The creature's feet left the ground. Izuku followed. Airborne, a spinning kick to the ribs, a talon slash to the shoulder, another punch, left this time, driving the Nomu higher. He was juggling it, in the air. Each hit came faster than the last, blue fire burning hotter, the phoenix inside him singing with combat rhythm. He grabbed the Nomu by its exposed brain, his hand closed around it. Blue fire poured directly into the tissue. The Nomu screamed. It was the first sound it had made that wasn't a roar. A scream. High and terrible and broken. The phoenix fire wasn't just burning, it was healing things that had been broken on purpose. Neural pathways that had been severed to create a mindless weapon were being restored, and the sensation was driving the creature mad. Izuku released it. The Nomu fell 30 feet and hit the ground in a heap. It twitched, convulsed. Its regeneration was fighting the phoenix fire and losing. Blue flame danced across its body like a disease it couldn't shake. It didn't get back up. Izuku landed, wings folding, human form returning. He straightened his uniform. His hair was a mess. His shirt was torn in 3 places, healing closed as the remnants of blue fire washed over the fabric. He exhaled, long and slow. Shock absorption. He looked at the twitching Nomu. Doesn't help much when you're burning from the inside out, Yoi. Shigaraki was standing 10 feet away. His hands were shaking. Every finger was scratching at his arms, his neck, his face. His voice was a whisper. That's impossible. The Nomu was designed to kill All Might. You You're just a student. You're a kid. Izuku looked at him, those green eyes half-lidded again, the intensity fading back into that comfortable drowsiness, assessed the hand villain with mild curiosity. And? Shigaraki took a step backward. Then, the doors of the USJ exploded inward. I am here. All Might stood in the doorway, full form, blazing smile, fists raised, power radiating from his body like a physical weight pressing down on the room. He'd come ready for war. He found the war already finished. His eyes swept the scene. The defeated villains scattered around the plaza, taken down by Aizawa before he fell. The Nomu, twitching and broken on the ground, wrapped in blue fire that was systematically dismantling its modifications. Shigaraki, stepping backward. The warp villain, Kurogiri, already opening a portal to retreat. And in the center of it all, a green-haired student in a torn uniform, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd had a slightly more eventful lunch break than planned. All Might's smile didn't waver, but something behind his eyes shifted. Something enormous and old and full of questions. Shigaraki vanished through the portal. The Nomu lost to a child. His voice faded into the purple mist. I'll remember you, green brat. The portal closed. All Might walked forward. His footsteps were heavy. His gaze was locked on Izuku. Young Midoriya. All Might, Izuku nodded. Respectful, genuine. You. All Might's eyes went to the Nomu, to the blue fire still working on its body. You defeated that creature alone, so it was built for you, Yoi. Shock absorption and regeneration, perfect counter to pure strength. Izuku shrugged. But I don't fight with pure strength. Clearly. All Might's voice was thick with something. Emotion, awe, recognition. Clearly you do more. Izuku looked past All Might, to the stairs, where his classmates were descending, carefully, slowly, staring at the devastation. At the Nomu. At him, Mina was running. She hit the ground floor and sprinted across the cracked concrete, weaving between debris, and she didn't slow down when she reached him. She threw herself forward and her arms locked around his neck, and she held on, like he might disappear if she let go. You're okay. Her voice was muffled against his shoulder. You're okay. You're okay. I'm always okay. Shut up. Just shut up for 1 second. She pulled back far enough to look at him. Her eyes were wet. Her smile was shaking. You scared me. Izuku's hand came up, rested on the back of her head. His thumb brushed against one of her horns, and the gesture was so natural, so easy, that half the class watching couldn't tell if this was new or if it had been happening for weeks. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just warn a girl next time before you fight a monster, okay? I'll send a text, Yoi. She laughed. It came out half as a sob. She punched his chest lightly and then buried her face back in his shoulder. All Might watch this. His smile softened into something genuine, something warm. The rest of the class arrived. Kirishima, Kaminari, Sero. They clapped Izuku on the back, talked over each other, recounted what they'd seen from the stairs with increasing volume and disbelief. You fought that thing for like 5 minutes straight. It broke your neck. I saw it break your neck. And you just... The fire went into its brain and it screamed. Bro, you're the scariest person I have ever met, and I mean that as a compliment. Izuku took it all with the same half smile, the same tired eyes, the same yoi at the end of a response that nobody fully understood, but everyone had stopped questioning. Todoroki stood at the edge of the group, arms crossed, face unreadable. His heterochromatic eyes were fixed on Izuku with an intensity that hadn't dimmed since the fight started. He said nothing. But something was working behind those eyes. Something was clicking into place. Ida was helping Aizawa. The teacher's wounds were stabilized. Izuku's earlier healing had bought enough time for a recovery girl, who arrived with the police and began proper treatment. But Aizawa's one functional eye found Izuku in the crowd and held there, grateful. And something else. Something that looked very much like a teacher realizing his student had already surpassed most of the professional heroes in the country. The sports festival was 3 weeks after USJ. 3 weeks of recovery. 3 weeks of training. 3 weeks of the media absolutely losing their minds about the USJ incident. And the mysterious student who had defeated a creature designed to kill All Might. The footage leaked. Of course it did. And the internet did what the internet does. Fan edits. Compilation videos. Frame-by-frame analysis of every exchange between Izuku and the Nomu. Message boards debating whether the Phoenix Boy was even human. Trending hashtags. Memes, Izuku's phone buzzed constantly. He had it on silent. Mina showed him the fan accounts. Izuku, someone drew fan art of you. Look at this, they gave you abs. I have abs. I know. That's why the fan art is accurate. The sports festival arrived with the weight of something inevitable. Every first-year student in UA competing in front of millions of viewers, in front of pro heroes scouting for interns, in front of a world that was watching specifically because they knew the Phoenix was going to be there. The stadium was packed. 80,000 people in the seats. Cameras in every corner. Present Mike's voice shaking the speakers with pre-event hype. Welcome to the UA Sports Festival. The first-year stage, you've seen the news, you've seen the footage. Class 1A survived a villain attack, and now they're here to show you what they're made of. The classes marched out. Class 1A led the procession, 20 students walking into the stadium under the full weight of national attention. Izuku walked at a pace that was slightly behind everyone else. Hands in pockets, eyes scanning the crowd with mild amusement. His uniform fit a little differently than the others, shoulders broader, the fabric stretched slightly across his chest and back, because his body was built for something the uniform wasn't designed for. Mina walked beside him, waving to the crowd with both hands. Bouncing, high-fiving Kirishima as they walked, she hip-checked Izuku as they entered the main field. You ready to show off? I don't show off. You literally threw a robot into a field. It was in the way. Show off. He smiled. She beamed. The first event, an obstacle race. The entire first-year class, all 11 courses competing simultaneously. The stadium course was designed with hazards, robots, terrain challenges. Midnight announced the rules from a platform above. Begin. 200 students surged forward. The tunnel entrance became a choke point immediately. Bodies pressed together, quirks activated. Todoroki dropped a wave of ice that froze a dozen people to the ground and surged ahead. Bakugo blasted over the crowd with explosions. Bodies flew. Izuku didn't enter the tunnel. He stood at the starting line, watched the chaos of the entrance for a moment. Then his wings came out. One beat. He was airborne. He flew over the tunnel, over the obstacle course, over the robots, over the ice field, over the canyon. Just flew 50 feet in the air, blue flame trailing behind him like a comet's tail. Every camera in the stadium followed him. Every pair of eyes in the stands tracked the blue streak crossing the course in seconds. He landed at the finish line before anyone else had cleared the second obstacle. Present Mike's voice cracked. Midoriya Izuku finishes the race in 23 seconds? Hold on, 23 seconds for a race that usually takes the winner 8 minutes? The crowd erupted. The sound was physical, a wall of noise that hit like a shockwave. Izuku stood at the finish line. He looked back at the course, at the students still fighting through the first obstacle. He scratched the back of his head. Maybe I should have walked, Yoi. Todoroki came through second. 3 minutes later, his face was tight, controlled. He looked at Izuku standing there, relaxed, unbothered, like he'd been waiting for a bus. Something in Todoroki's jaw tightened. Bakugo finished third. His face was apoplectic. He said nothing. The explosions popping from his palm said everything. The second event, the cavalry battle. Teams of 4. Headbands worth points based on your finishing position in the race. The first place finisher carries a headband worth 10 million, making them the target of everyone else. Izuku wore the 10 million headband around his forehead. He looked at the assembled teams, every single one of them staring at him with hunger. His team, Mina, Uraraka, and Tokoyami. They'd come to him immediately. Mina, because of course. Uraraka because he'd saved her in the entrance exam, and she trusted him absolutely. Tokoyami because Dark Shadow recognized something in Izuku's fire, something that commanded respect. The plan is simple, Yoi. Izuku looked at his team. I fly. You hold on. That's the whole plan? Uraraka asked. Do you need more? No. Actually, I don't think I do. Uraraka touched all 4 of them. 0 gravity. Mina cheered. Tokoyami's expression suggested he was reconsidering his life choices. The cavalry battle started. Every team charged at Izuku's. 15 minutes of madness. Teams clashing, strategies colliding, headbands changing hands in a blur of quirks and screaming. Izuku's team spent the entire round floating 30 feet above the battlefield. Unreachable, untouchable. Izuku's wings keeping them aloft, Uraraka's gravity keeping them weightless. Mina waved down at the other teams from above. Tokoyami had Dark Shadow on guard duty, swatting away anyone who tried to get airborne on their own. Bakugo tried. He exploded himself upward, reaching, straining, and Mina hit him with a spray of acid that dissolved the sole of his shoe and sent him spinning back down. She blew him a kiss on the way past. "Sorry, Blasty!" Bakugo's scream of rage echoed across the stadium. The timer ran out. Izuku's team landed. 10 million points, untouched. First place. Naturally, Present Mike was going hoarse. The crowd was going insane. The internet was going to need a full day to process the memes generated in the last hour alone. Then, the tournament bracket. One-on-one fights. Single elimination. The bracket went up on the screen and the stadium hummed with anticipation. Izuku's first match. Shinso Hitoshi. The general studies kid with brainwashing. Don't respond to him, Ojiro warned Izuku before the match. He takes over your mind if you answer him. Izuku nodded, walked to the ring. Stood across from Shinso, a tall, tired-looking boy with purple hair and bags under his eyes that rivaled Aizawa's. "Must be nice," Shinso said as the match started. "Born with a power like that. Makes everything easy, doesn't it? Some of us have to actually try." Izuku walked forward. Didn't respond. Didn't slow down. His hand closed around Shinso's uniform collar and he lifted the boy off the ground one-handed, walked to the edge of the ring and set him down outside the boundary line. Gently. "Good match, Yoi." The crowd went dead silent for a full second. Then the laughter started. Then the cheers. Then the complete and total pandemonium of 80,000 people watching a tournament match end in 6 seconds without a single blow being thrown. Present Mike. Midoriya wins by ring out in 6 seconds. Did anyone even see what happened? Shinso sat on the ground outside the ring, blinking, processing. He'd been lifted like a child and deposited outside the ring with the same care you'd use to move a potted plant. What? He said to nobody in particular. Izuku's next matches were similar, efficient, overwhelming. Opponents who were talented, who were skilled, who had real potential, encountering something that simply operated on a different level. Kaminari fired a full electrical discharge. It hit Izuku square in the chest. The electricity coursed through his body, and the blue flame surged, absorbing the damage, healing the neural disruption before it could impair his movements. Izuku walked through the lightning like it was rain and put Kaminari on his back with a single palm strike. Ida used Recipro Burst, maximum speed, blinding approach, fast enough to be invisible to most people. Izuku turned, caught his leg mid-kick, and used the momentum to redirect Ida directly out of bounds. The speedster hit the grass outside the ring and slid for 30 feet. Good speed, Yoi. Work on the follow-up. Ida lay on the grass, staring at the sky, deeply questioning everything he'd been told about being a hero. The semifinals. Bakugo. The stadium went silent when this matchup was announced. Everyone knew the history, the sludge villain, the quirk test, the rivalry that wasn't really a rivalry because you can't have a rivalry when one side outclasses the other so completely. Bakugo walked to the ring with murder in his eyes. His jaw was set. His palms were sparking. He'd trained for 3 weeks for this moment. He'd watched every second of Izuku's fights. He had a plan. Izuku walked to the ring with his hands in his pockets. Begin. Bakugo exploded forward. Fast. Committed. He opened with a right hook backed by a full power detonation, a move that would have blown through a concrete wall. It hit Izuku's raised forearm. The explosion bloomed against Phoenix Fire's skin and did exactly nothing. Bakugo spun. Left palm. Another explosion. Point blank to the ribs. Izuku took it. Didn't move. Blue fire flickered over the impact point. The burns healed before they could fully form. Another. Another. Bakugo was a storm of explosions. Rapid fire. Powerful. Skilled. Every angle. Every approach. AP shot to the face. Stun grenade to close distance. Howitzer impact. A full spin. A concentrated blast. Everything Bakugo had in one shot. It hit Izuku in the chest and blew the uniform fabric away, revealing skin that was already glowing blue, already healing, already whole. Izuku hadn't moved. He stood in the same spot, arms at his sides. Absorbing everything Bakugo had with the expression of someone being hit by particularly aggressive snowflakes, Bakugo stood in front of him. Breathing hard, palms smoking, uniform torn, he'd given everything, his best, his absolute maximum. The green-haired boy in front of him was untouched. "You done, Bakugo?" The blonde's teeth bared. "Don't you dare! Look down on me!" Izuku moved. One step. His hand came up, open palm against Bakugo's chest, and he pushed. It was a push, a single push with one hand, but behind it was the physical strength of a mythical zone operating without restriction. Bakugo left the ground. He flew backward, out of the ring, over the grass, into the concrete wall at the edge of the arena. He hit it hard enough to leave a crater. His vision went white. His body went limp. He slid down the wall and landed in a heap. The stadium was silent. Then it wasn't. Midoriya wins. One hit. One single solitary hit, and Bakugo he's out. He's in the wall. Is he okay? Someone check if he's okay. Bakugo was not okay. Physically, he would recover. But something in him, something that had been building since the sludge villain incident, cracked in that moment. He'd seen the gap, felt it, tasted it in the concrete dust. Izuku walked away from the ring. He passed Mina on the sideline. She was bouncing, fists pumping, screaming his name with the rest of the crowd. That was so hot. It was one push, Yoi. The hottest push I've ever seen. He huffed, almost a laugh. The finals, Izuku versus Todoroki Shoto. This one mattered. The stadium knew it. The commentators knew it. The pro heroes in the stands, Endeavor, number 2, father of the boy about to fight, knew it. Todoroki walked to the ring with ice already forming at his feet. His face was stone. His right side was radiating cold, the air around him crystallizing, his breath visible in white puffs despite the stadium heat. Izuku walked to his side of the ring, hands in pockets, naturally. He looked at Todoroki with something almost like fondness. You going to use your left side, Todoroki? The ice user's jaw tightened. I'll defeat you with my mother's power alone. Izuku tilted his head. All right, let's see, Yoi. Begin. Todoroki didn't hesitate. The ice came, a massive wave, 50 feet tall, sweeping across the ring like a glacier in fast forward. It was tremendous. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. The crowd gasped, cameras flashed. The ice hit Izuku, and blue fire erupted. The wave of frost crashed against a wall of phoenix flame that melted it on contact. Steam billowed upward, a cloud that covered the ring and blotted out the sun for a moment. The ice kept coming. The fire kept burning. Todoroki pushed harder. Izuku stood still. The steam cleared enough to see. Izuku was walking forward, through the ice, step by step, blue flames dancing at his feet, melting the frost the instant it touched him. His shoes left smoking footprints in the ring's surface. His eyes were locked on Todoroki. Your ice is sad, Todoroki. He tilted his head, something almost gentle in his voice. Use the fire. You can't burn me anyway. Todoroki's eyes widened. The ice faltered. His fist clenched at his left side, the fire side, the side he'd sworn never to use, the side that belonged to his father. His voice was tight. I won't use his power. It's your power. Izuku was closer now, 10 feet away. His voice carried across the ring, across the stadium, gentle and firm and unyielding. It's your fire. It came from your body. It lives in your blood. It doesn't belong to him just because he bred you for it. Todoroki flinched. The word bred hit him like a physical blow. You're holding back half of yourself because of someone who doesn't deserve that much power over you. Izuku stopped walking, 5 feet away. That's weak, Todoroki, and you're better than that. The stadium held its breath. Todoroki's left side ignited. The fire came out like it had been waiting. Red and orange and massive, erupting from his left arm, his left leg, climbing up his body until half of him was ablaze. The heat was immediate, crushing. The air rippled. The remaining ice on the ring evaporated in seconds. In the stands, Endeavor rose from his seat. His eyes were wide. His mouth was open. Todoroki screamed, frustration and release and something broken finally being set free. His fire surged. Both sides active, ice and flame at maximum output. He was a walking contradiction. Freeze on the right, burn on the left. And he threw everything at Izuku, fire and ice. Together, a combination attack that would have leveled a building. Izuku met it head-on. Blue fire versus red, phoenix flame versus hell flame genetics. The two forces collided in the center of the ring, and the explosion of steam and heat blew outward in every direction. Cementos raised barriers. Midnight was blown back a step. The front row of the stands felt the heat. When the steam cleared, Izuku was standing in front of Todoroki, inside his guard, close enough to touch. He delivered a flaming knee to Todoroki's stomach. It wasn't cruel. It was firm. A single strike that lifted Todoroki off his feet and sent him sailing backward, out of the ring, past the boundary line, landing on his back in the grass with the wind driven from his lungs. Todoroki lay there, gasping, the fire on his left side still burning, the ice on his right still crackling. He was out of bounds, he'd lost. And something was happening on his arm. Blue flame. Izuku's flame, transferred in the moment of contact, was spreading over Todoroki's left forearm, over the burned scar that stretched from his wrist to his elbow. The old scar, the one his mother had given him with boiling water, the one he'd carried for a decade. Blue fire spread across it like paint being applied by invisible fingers, and it healed. The scar tissue softened, smoothed, the raised, angry skin settled into something healthy, something whole. The coloration evened out. Within 10 seconds, the scar was gone. The skin of Todoroki's arm was smooth and unmarked. Todoroki lifted his arm, looked at it. His face did something that the cameras captured and that millions of viewers at home would rewatch for years. A journey of expression that started at shock and traveled through disbelief into something raw and breaking and beautiful. His eyes filled. He looked at Izuku, standing at the edge of the ring, looking back at him with those half-lidded eyes that carried more warmth than they had any right to. "You?" Todoroki's voice cracked. "It didn't belong there, Yoi." Izuku shrugged. "So I fixed it." Todoroki pressed his healed arm against his chest. His eyes were streaming. He didn't wipe them. He didn't look away. "Thank you." Izuku nodded, turned, walked back toward the fighter's entrance. In the stands, Endeavor was still standing. His face was complicated. Something had cracked in it too. Watching his son use his fire willingly for the first time, watching a stranger heal a wound he'd caused indirectly through years of pressure and abuse that had broken his wife enough to burn their child. Something in Endeavor's face looked very much like shame. Whether it would last was another question. The crowd was losing their collective minds. People were crying, people were cheering, people were on their phones, texting, posting, because they knew they'd just witnessed something that transcended a tournament. Present Mike's voice was thick. "Midoriya wins the first-year tournament. Your sports festival champion, Izuku Midoriya, the Phoenix!" The crowd picked up the name, "Phoenix! Phoenix! Phoenix!" Mina was crying, and she didn't care. She met him at the entrance with tears running down her pink cheeks and a smile so wide it was ridiculous, and she grabbed his face with both hands. "You did the thing." She was laughing and crying simultaneously. "You did the thing with his arm. You healed him." "Yeah, Yoi. You're amazing." He looked at her, at the tears, at the smile, at the warmth radiating from every part of her. His hands found her waist, natural, easy, like they'd been there before. "You're loud, Mina. You love it." He didn't deny it. The medal ceremony happened. Izuku stood on the top podium with a gold medal he didn't particularly care about and an expression that suggested he'd rather be taking a nap. Todoroki was second, his expression miles away, his healed arm visible to the cameras, his fire occasionally flickering at his fingertips like he was testing it. Reminding himself it was his. Bakugo was third, chained to the podium because he tried to fight Todoroki again after their semifinal match and had to be restrained. He was screaming into a muzzle. Nobody was surprised. All Might presented the medals. When he draped the gold around Izuku's neck, their eyes met. "You've shown the world something remarkable today, young Midoriya. I just fought, Yoi." "Yes, you did." All Might's hand rested on Izuku's shoulder, heavy, warm. "And the way you fought, the way you healed, tells me everything I need to know about the kind of hero you will become." Izuku looked up at the symbol of peace, at the man who was everything he'd ever admired as a child, at the hero who was slowly, invisibly running out of time. "Thank you, All Might." It was sincere, completely, utterly sincere, and All Might heard it. He smiled, a real smile, from the man underneath the persona, and moved on. 3 weeks after the sports festival, the internships began. Students were placed with pro heroes for field experience. Izuku chose Gran Torino, All Might's recommendation, a retired hero who lived alone and was roughly 3 feet tall and 800 years old. The first day with Gran Torino was spent dodging the old man's ridiculously fast attacks and listening to lectures about control and precision and using that power of yours for something other than looking pretty. You could be the strongest hero this country has ever produced, Gran Torino told him over microwave dinners. But strength without direction is just destruction. I have direction, yoi. Boy, you slouch so much I can't tell which direction you're facing. Fair. The second day, everything changed. Izuku was out for a walk in Hosu City. Gran Torino had sent him to pick up groceries, a task that was probably a test, though of what Izuku wasn't sure. The evening air was warm, the city lights were coming on. Then he saw the fire, 3 blocks away, rising above the rooftops, an orange glow that pulsed with intention. Somebody was burning something on purpose. At the same time, his phone buzzed. A message from Todoroki. Ida went to Hosu alone. He's hunting the hero killer. Izuku read it once. His eyes went sharp. He knew about Ida's brother. Knew about Ingenium being cut down by Stain. Knew the look that had been building in Ida's eyes for weeks. The cold focus of someone who'd already decided to do something stupid. Izuku put the phone in his pocket. His wings came out. He was airborne in under a second, cutting through the night sky toward the part of the city where the alley attacks had been reported. Below him, Hosu burned. Nomus on the streets, heroes mobilizing, chaos unfolding in every direction. He ignored all of it. He found the alley in 60 seconds, dropped from above, landed on the edge of a rooftop overlooking the narrow street below. What he saw made his jaw tighten. Native, a pro-hero, bleeding from the throat on the concrete, barely conscious. Ida, face down, arms locked at his sides, body rigid with paralysis, blood on his armor, a cut across his arm that had been opened and licked clean, and standing over both of them, Stain, the hero killer. Long blade in one hand, shorter knife in the other, body wrapped in bandages stained with old blood. His face was all hard angles and ideology, a man who had killed dozens of heroes he deemed unworthy. Fast, lethal, operating on a level that most pro-heroes couldn't match, he was raising his blade over Ida's head. You lack conviction, boy. Stain's voice was gravel and certainty, running around at vengeance without understanding what a hero truly is. You're everything wrong with this system. Izuku dropped from the roof. He hit the alley floor in a blaze of blue and gold. The impact cracking concrete, the light of his flames filling the narrow space like someone had turned the sun on in a closet. Stain pivoted. Fast, incredibly fast, spinning away from the light source with reflexes that spoke to decades of combat. Another one. Stain's eyes narrowed. He assessed Izuku in a heartbeat. The wings, the fire, the build, the complete absence of fear. You. The Phoenix Boy, from the sports festival. That's me, Yoi. Izuku straightened. His wings folded but stayed manifest, blue feathers glowing against his back, casting the alley in shifting light. Step away from my classmate. Stain smiled. It was thin and sharp and full of something that might have been respect or might have been anticipation. And if I refuse, then we do this the fun way. Stain moved. Izuku had fought fast opponents before. The Nomu was fast. Bakugo was fast. But Stain was a different kind of fast. The speed of a human body pushed to its absolute limit through years of training and refinement. No quirk enhancements to his speed, just pure owned killing efficiency. The long blade came around in a horizontal slash aimed at Izuku's throat. It was precise. It was clean. It connected. The blade opened Izuku's throat from ear to ear. Blood sprayed. For one instant, one terrible gut-dropping instant, the wound was real. Muscle. Artery, open air where tissue should be. Ida screamed from the ground. Native made a sound like dying. Stain moved with the blood. His tongue flashed out, faster than should be possible, and caught the spray. He licked, tasted. The blood curdle quirk activated. The paralysis hit Izuku like a wall of concrete. Every muscle locked. His body went rigid. He dropped to both knees, wings spasming, fire flickering, eyes wide with the surprise of being genuinely immobilized for the first time in his life. Stain stood over him, blade still dripping, eyes burning with conviction. You have power. His voice was almost regretful. More than anyone I've faced, but power without conviction is... He raised his sword for the killing blow. Then the blue fire erupted. It came from everywhere, under the skin, in the blood itself, in the cells that the paralysis toxin was trying to lock down. The Phoenix Fire, Izuku's life force, his soul, the fundamental power that resided in every fiber of his being, burned through the foreign substance like a wildfire through dry grass. The toxin in his blood was an invader. The fire recognized it as damage, and the fire healed damage. All damage. Izuku convulsed. His body bucked. Blue flame exploded outward from his pores, from his eyes, from the wound on his throat that was already closing. The fire was inside him and outside him, and it burned through the paralysis like it was nothing, like it was a minor cut, an inconvenience, something to be dismissed and forgotten. He stood. His throat was healed. His blood was clean. The fire wrapped around him in a halo of absolute defiance. Stain was frozen. His blade, raised for the kill, was suspended in the air. His eyes were wide. His mouth was open. For the first time in 20 years of killing heroes, the hero killer Stain was staring at something that he had absolutely nothing in his playbook for. What are you? Izuku cracked his neck to the left, then to the right. The pops echoed in the alley like gunshots. The guy who's gonna kick your ass, Yoi. Stain moved first. He had to, the predator instinct, the years of combat telling him that standing still meant dying. His blade came around in a killing arc faster than before, fueled by adrenaline and something that might have been fear. Izuku's hand caught the blade. He caught it between his fingers, thumb and index. The flat of the blade pressed between them. His hand was wreathed in blue fire, and the edge of the sword couldn't bite through Phoenix flame. The metal heated, glowed, began to soften. Stain's eyes went impossibly wider. Izuku yanked. The sword came free from Stain's grip, and Izuku tossed it behind him like discarding a piece of trash. It clattered against the alley wall. Then Izuku moved. He was inside Stain's guard in half a step. His right hand, human, no talons, just raw physical power, drove into Stain's stomach with a hook that folded the hero killer in half. The air left Stain's lungs in a rush. His feet came off the ground. Izuku's knee was already rising. Meeting Stain's descending face, like connecting with the bridge of his nose, blood flew. Something cracked. Stain spun. Drew the shorter knife. Slashed. A backhand cut aimed at Izuku's eyes. The blade opened skin across Izuku's cheek. Blue fire closed it before the blood could fall. Izuku retaliated with a straight kick to Stain's chest. The impact was heavy, backed by Zoan strength that could throw robots and fight Nomus and crack concrete. Stain hit the alley wall. The brick behind him spider-webbed. He came off the wall still fighting, still dangerous. A thrust with the knife low, aimed at the femoral artery. Izuku stepped aside, caught Stain's wrist, twisted. The knife fell. His elbow came down on Stain's shoulder with enough force to drive the hero killer to his knees. Stain headbutted him in the stomach. Hard. Izuku's abs absorbed it. He grabbed the back of Stain's head and drove his knee up into the hero killer's jaw. The crack echoed through the alley. Stain staggered backward. Blood streaming from his nose, his mouth, a cut above his eye. He was breathing hard. He was hurt. He was facing something that he could damage but never truly wound. Something that healed every injury before the next attack landed. He was losing. You. Stain coughed blood. Smiled. You might actually be worth something, Phoenix. Izuku didn't respond to the compliment. His arms shifted, hybrid form, blue feathers and flame erupting from elbow to fingertips, talons forming sharp and blazing. He moved forward. Stain tried to dodge. His speed was incredible, even hurt, even bleeding. The man was fast enough to be a blur, but Izuku was faster. He'd been faster from the start. He'd been letting the fight play out because he wanted Stain to feel it. Every hit, every counter, every moment of dawning realization. Izuku's talons caught Stain by the shoulders. Both hands, talons punching through the hero killer's armor like it was cardboard. He lifted Stain off the ground, one hand on each shoulder, blue fire blazing from both arms, and drove him backward into the alley wall. The impact cratered the brick. Dust fell. The building groaned. Izuku held him there, pinned, feet dangling, blood streaming from the talon wounds in his shoulders, flowing around the phoenix fire that sealed the entry points and prevented Stain from bleeding out. He wasn't killing him. He was containing him. Stain stared at Izuku from 6 inches away, those red eyes meeting green. The hero killer's ideology, his belief that only the truly worthy should be called heroes, met something in Izuku's gaze that it couldn't dismiss. Izuku headbutted him. The crack was final. Stain's eyes rolled. His body went limp. The hero killer, the man who had terrorized the hero system for years, who had killed 17 and crippled 23, hung unconscious from Izuku's talons like a discarded puppet. Izuku pulled his talons free, caught Stain's body before it fell. laid him down on the concrete with more care than the hero killer probably deserved. Blue fire closed the shoulder wounds because Izuku Midoriya healed people, even the ones who tried to kill him. He turned. Ida was still on the ground, still paralyzed. His eyes were the size of moons. His face was streaked with tears, shame, relief, awe, everything hitting him at once. Izuku knelt beside him, his hands pressed against the cuts on Ida's armor. The places Stain's blade had found flesh. Blue fire spread, warm, gentle, healing. Midoriya, Ida's voice broke. I'm sorry. I went alone because my brother. I know. Izuku's voice was gentle. The drowsiness was back, the half smile, the warmth. Your brother is a good hero, Ida. He'd want you to be one too. Going after Stain alone, that wasn't being a hero. I know. Tears fell. I know. You were angry. That's human. The paralysis was fading, Izuku's fire burning through the remnants of the toxin in Ida's blood just by proximity. But you're better than this. You're better than revenge. Okay? Ida's jaw trembled. He nodded. Okay. Izuku moved to native. Same process. Blue fire over the wounds. The pro-hero gasped as his injuries closed, as the bleeding stopped, as torn muscle knitted, as his body was put back together by hands that carried resurrection in their touch. Native stared at Izuku. Kid, what are you? A student, Yoi. Izuku stood, rolled his shoulders. Can you stand? Native tested his legs. They worked. He stood, shaky but functional. We should get out of this alley. Izuku looked toward the street. The sounds of chaos, nomus, heroes fighting, buildings burning were still present. Hosu's having a bad night. Izuku! He turned. Mina hit him like a pink cannonball. She'd been in Hosu for her own internship, with Uwabami doing commercial work that she'd complained about via text for 3 days straight. When the Nomu attack started, she'd evacuated with her mentor. When she'd seen the blue light in an alley from 3 blocks away, she'd run, her arms locked around him, tight, her face buried in his chest. She was covered in dust, and her hero costume was singed at the edges, and there was a smear of someone else's blood on her shoulder from helping an injured civilian, and she could not have cared less about any of it. I saw the light, and I knew it was you. I ran here, and she was talking into his chest. Rapid fire, words tumbling over each other. And there's a guy unconscious on the ground, and Ida's crying, and you're just standing here like what? She pulled back, looked up at him. Her golden eyes were fierce and wet and absolutely certain. Like, you just beat the hero killer. You beat the hero killer. He was going to hurt Ida, Yoi. You beat him in an alley by yourself. To be fair, he got a good hit in. Izuku. She grabbed his face, both hands on his cheeks, squishing slightly. Shut up. You're amazing. Accept it. He looked at her. Pink skin flushed darker across her cheeks, black and gold eyes blazing with something that went past admiration into territory that made his chest warm in a way that had nothing to do with Phoenix fire. His hands found her waist again. Natural. Easy. You're loud, Mina? You love it. Yeah. His voice was soft, the softest it had been in this entire story. Yeah, I do. Her eyes widened. Her blush deepened. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, then she kissed him. Quick. Hard. More of a press than a proper kiss. Her lips against his for 2 seconds while standing in an alley with an unconscious serial killer on the ground and a crying classmate nearby and a city burning around them. She pulled back, grinning, tears at the corners of her eyes. Finally. Oh my God, finally. I've been waiting for you to say something. I just said I took you long enough. Ida, still on the ground, still crying, managed. Should I look away? Yes, Ida. Mina pointed at him without looking away from Izuku. Look away. Izuku exhaled, long, slow. The blue flames at his hands flickered gently, at rest, at peace. What a pain, Yoi. He was smiling when he thought it. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Pro-heroes swept the alley. Stain was contained, unconscious, cuffed with quirk suppressors that were ultimately unnecessary given his current state, loaded into an armored transport. The officers took statements. Ida confessed to going alone. Native corroborated everything. Izuku stood to the side with Mina tucked against him. She'd refused to let go of his arm and he'd stopped trying to make her, and answered questions in his usual unhurried way. You engaged the hero killer alone, son? Initially, Yoi. Ida and Native were already down, and you subdued him through direct combat? Yes. Without weapons? I didn't need weapons. The officer looked at Izuku, at the wings still faintly visible at his back, at the blue fire flickering at his fingertips like a heartbeat, at the complete, profound absence of injury on his body despite fighting one of the most dangerous criminals in the country. The officer wrote, "See attached video footage," on his report and moved on. Gran Torino arrived shortly after. The tiny old man looked at the scene, the alley, the blood, the hero killer being loaded into a van, and then at Izuku. "I sent you for groceries. I got distracted, Yoi." "You got distracted? By the hero killer?" "He was hurting my friend." Gran Torino opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, sighed a sigh that contained decades of experience dealing with overpowered teenagers who couldn't stay out of trouble. "You're paying for the groceries, at least." "Fair, Yoi." The news broke the next morning. Hero killer Stain captured, subdued by UA student in Hosu Alley. The internet detonated. Again. The footage from a bystander's phone who'd caught the tail end of the fight, Izuku pinning Stain to the wall, the headbutt, the villain going limp, was viewed 40 million times in 24 hours. Fan accounts tripled overnight. The Phoenix trended globally for 3 days straight. People made edits, people made animations, people made memes of Izuku's sleepy face juxtaposed with the absolute violence of his fighting. Someone made a compilation of every time Blue Fire healed a wound set to music, and it hit 10 million views in an afternoon. The world knew his name now. Izuku Midoriya, 16 years old, UA student. The Phoenix, the boy who walked through fire and came out the other side looking bored. The boy who healed friend and foe alike because the power in his hands was resurrection and he refused to use it selfishly. The boy who stood between danger and the people he cared about without hesitation, without drama, without a single moment of doubt, because doubt had never had a place in him. From the moment he'd eaten that fruit on a lonely beach at 10 years old, crying and hungry and forgotten by the world, he'd known what he was becoming. Something that could never be broken. Something that burned eternal. Something that the world of heroes, with all its pomp and ranking and politics, had never had a framework for. Izuku Midoriya sat on the roof of his dorm building the night after the Stain news broke. Legs dangling over the edge, phone on silent, stars overhead, blue fire dancing lazily at his fingertips because it was always there, always present, always his. Mina found him there. Of course she did. She sat beside him, legs over the edge too, their shoulders touching. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just sat with him, watching the city lights. "You okay?" she finally asked. "Always, Yoi. I know that's what you say. I'm asking what's real." He looked at her, the stars reflected in her golden eyes, the city lights painting her pink skin in shifting patterns. "I'm good, Mina." He leaned into her slightly, just enough for it to mean something. "I'm really good." She smiled, rested her head on his shoulder. Her horn bumped his jaw and she adjusted without thinking, and the movement was practiced already. Comfortable. "Good." She reached over and laced their fingers together. His hand was warm. It was always warm. "Because I'm going to need you to stay that way. We've got 2 more years of this school, and if the first few weeks are anything to go by, they're going to get crazier. Oh, definitely. You attract chaos like a magnet." "I attract a lot of things." She pinched his arm. He didn't flinch. She pinched harder. He smiled. "You're lucky I like you," she informed him. "The luckiest, Yoi." They sat there, on the roof, under the stars, the Phoenix and the Acid Girl. 2 people who shouldn't have fit together but did. Perfectly, completely, like the universe had arranged it specifically. Below them, UA slept. The campus was silent in the way that only places full of young people can be. The silence of energy temporarily at rest, ready to explode back into noise at the first sign of morning. Tomorrow would bring more training, more enemies, more of a world that was only beginning to understand what walked among them. Shigaraki was still out there, plotting, scratching, remembering the boy who destroyed his weapon. All for one lurked in shadows that hadn't yet been named. The future was full of things that would test even a phoenix. But tonight was enough. Izuku's wings manifested, just for a moment, wrapping around them both in a cocoon of blue and gold, warm and bright and beautiful against the darkness. Mina gasped, then laughed, then nestled deeper into the warmth. "Show off," she murmured. "You love it." "I really do." The flames flickered, danced, burned eternal. And somewhere, in an agency, in a prison, in a bar hidden underground, People who had never met Izuku Midoriya were already talking about him, already planning, already trying to figure out how to something that couldn't be killed, couldn't be stopped, couldn't be reasoned with once it decided to protect someone. They would learn. They would all learn. The Phoenix had awakened, and the world of heroes would never be the same. This is the story of Izuku Midoriya, and it's only just beginning. The days after Hosu settled into something almost resembling normal. Almost. Because normal at UA now included the fact that one of their students was internationally recognized, trending on social media daily, and had single-handedly captured a serial killer that professional heroes had failed to catch for years. The Class 1A group chat was chaos. It had been chaos since USJ. It had evolved into something ungovernable after the sports festival. Post-Stain, it achieved a state of communication that could only be described as beautiful anarchy, Kaminari, at 2:47 a.m. Izuku is literally the final boss of our class. Sero at 2 a.m. Of our class? Bro, he's the final boss of the school. Kirishima at 2 a.m. The manliest thing I have ever witnessed was him catching that sword between his fingers. Jiro at 2:50, go to sleep. All of you. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about how he headbutted the hero killer unconscious. Mina, photo of Izuku sleeping on the couch with his mouth slightly open. He's out cold. The hero killer defeated him after all. Exhaustion. Ashido, did you take a picture of him sleeping? Mina at 2:53, yes, and I'll do it again. Izuku woke the next morning to 37 unread messages and a picture of himself asleep posted to a group of 20 people. He looked at it, sighed, sent one message. Izuku, delete that, Yoi. Never. He put his phone face down and went to make breakfast. The internship week ended. Students returned to UA. Normal classes resumed. All Might continued to teach hero courses. Aizawa continued to pretend he didn't play favorites, while clearly treating Izuku differently from the rest, assigning him advanced combat scenarios, asking him to demonstrate techniques for the class, occasionally just staring at him during training like a scientist observing an anomaly. Recovery Girl had asked to examine Izuku 3 times since USJ. Each time, the results came back the same. His cellular structure was unique. His cells regenerated at a rate that her instruments couldn't properly measure. His body temperature ran hot, 39 degrees Celsius baseline, and his blood carried trace elements that her decades of medical experience couldn't identify. This isn't a quirk, she told Nezu after the 3rd examination. I've seen quirks for 50 years. This is something else. Nezu sipped his tea. Yes, it is. Aren't you concerned? Concerned? Nezu's eyes glittered. I'm fascinated. A biological transformation that exists outside the framework of quirks, that resists erasure, that heals any wound instantaneously, that allows full animal transformation into a creature of myth. He set his teacup down. This boy is the most interesting thing to happen to Hero Society in a generation. That's a very political answer. I prefer comprehensive, Recovery Girl. She huffed, but she didn't push further, because ultimately, Izuku Midoriya was a kind boy who healed people and fought villains, and showed up to class mostly on time. Whatever he was underneath the surface, whatever that power truly was, he was using it well. And in a world full of people using their power badly, that was enough. Training continued. Izuku grew stronger, though whether it was growing or simply becoming more comfortable with what was already there, nobody could say. His hybrid form became more fluid, more natural. He shifted between human and phoenix aspects mid-conversation sometimes, a wing stretching out absently when he yawned, talons manifesting when he needed to open a jar, blue fire flickering at his hairline when he was annoyed. The class adapted. Slowly, the way humans adapt to anything extraordinary, through exposure and routine. Izuku, becoming the most powerful person in any room, stopped being shocking and started being background context. A fact of life, like gravity or Aizawa's apparent allergy to enthusiasm. Pass the salt, Izuku would say at dinner. Here. Sato would pass it. Blue fire would flicker at Izuku's wrist because he'd burned himself on the stove and healed before anyone noticed. Thanks, Yoi. Normal. They're normal. The exception was combat training. There, the gap between Izuku and everyone else was impossible to ignore. Aizawa had stopped putting Izuku into standard exercises within the first month. Instead, Izuku was given special scenarios. Fight against 4 opponents simultaneously, restrain a criminal while protecting 3 civilians, engage a target who can fly, a target who's underwater, a target who's completely invisible. He passed all of them. Most in under a minute. This isn't teaching him anything, Aizawa told All Might during a staff meeting. He's beyond what I can challenge in a school setting. Perhaps that's the point of school, All Might replied in his emaciated form, sipping tea. He's here to learn the other things. Ethics. Teamwork. Restraint. Restraint. Aizawa's voice was flat. The boy who threw a 0-pointer out of an exam arena. Fair point. He needs real challenges. Opponents who can match him. In this school, All Might's thin eyebrows rose. Who? They both sat with that question. It hung in the air like smoke. I could, All Might began. You're out of time. Aizawa's voice was blunt. 3 hours a day. Decreasing. All Might flinched, looked at his own withered hands, nodded. Then we prepare him for what's coming, because whatever the League of Villains does next, they'll be coming for him specifically. He knows. Does he? He fought their weapon at USJ and won. He captured Stain in their territory. Yes, he knows. All Might nodded. His eyes were heavy with something that looked like the weight of passing a torch, even if it wasn't the same torch he'd planned to pass. 2 months after Stain, summer, the class moved into dormitories. Heights Alliance, a building designed for Class 1A specifically, built after the League's attacks, made it clear that students needed protection even off campus. Moving day was chaos. 20 teenagers with varying levels of organizational ability, cramming belongings into identical rooms. Izuku's room was sparse, a bed, a desk, a few books, an All Might poster he'd had since childhood, the only remnant of the fanboy he used to be, hidden behind the door where only he could see it. Mina's room was 3 doors down. She'd measured. 3 doors. That's like 12 seconds of walking. We're basically neighbors. We're in the same building, Mina. Everyone's basically neighbors. Don't ruin this for me. The common area became the social hub. Evenings spent on couches, playing games, arguing about hero rankings, watching movies with varying levels of attention. Izuku claimed the corner of the longest couch and became permanently associated with it. His spot. The class accepted this without question, the way a pride accepts where the lion sleeps. Mina usually ended up next to him, or on him. Boundaries were a suggestion that she cheerfully ignored and he never actually enforced. Midoriya. Todoroki approached one evening. His voice was measured but open, different from before the sports festival, warmer. Can I ask you something? Sure, Yoi. Your fire, the healing. Todoroki touched his own forearm. The one that had been scarred was now smooth. Is there a limit? Izuku considered this. Probably. I've never found one. You healed my scar, something that was years old. Fresh wounds are easier. Old ones take more focus. But yeah, if I want to heal something, it heals. Todoroki was silent for a moment. Then, could you heal anything? Brain damage, organ failure, genetic conditions? That's a big question, Todoroki. I know. I'm asking anyway. Izuku looked at him, at the boy who had been broken by his father's ambition and was slowly, piece by piece, putting himself back together. There was something specific behind the question. Someone specific he was thinking about. Your mom? Todoroki's expression didn't change, but his hands tightened slightly at his sides. I could try, Yoi, if you wanted. No promises on psychological wounds. The fire heals bodies. Minds are different. But you'd try. For you? Yeah, I'd try. Todoroki nodded. Something in his shoulders released. Tension he'd been carrying for weeks, maybe longer. Thank you. Anytime. Todoroki walked away. Mina immediately appeared from behind a pillar where she'd definitely been eavesdropping. You're going to make me cry again, and I just did my makeup. You weren't supposed to hear that. I hear everything. She climbed over the back of the couch and landed half in his lap. You're so good, Izuku. You know that? Like genuinely, truly, deeply. Mina, good. He exhaled, his arms settled around her waist. Natural, easy, practiced. You're going to give me a reputation, Yoi. You already have a reputation. The Phoenix, the guy who heals people, the guy who fought the Nomu and the hero killer and looked bored doing both. I wasn't bored. Your face was bored. Your face is always bored. My face is resting. Your face is criminal. She poked his cheek. This face beat a serial killer. This face made Endeavor sit down. This face... He kissed her. Quick. Efficient. Enough to make her words stop and her eyes go wide and her blush deepen 3 shades. Made me shut up, she finished breathlessly. Okay, point taken. From across the common room, Kirishima gave a thumbs up. Kaminari pretended to wipe a tear. Jiro rolled her eyes but was smiling. Ida, sitting at the table with textbooks spread around him, still working through the guilt of Hosu but healthier for it, stronger for it, looked at the scene and felt something in his chest settle. Izuku Midoriya was what a hero was supposed to be. Strong enough to fight anything, kind enough to heal anything, steady enough to hold everyone around him together simply by being present. The Phoenix. It fit. Perfectly. The summer training camp was next on the schedule. A week in the mountains with the Wild Pussycats, a hero team that specialized in outdoor rescue operations. The class boarded a bus and headed into the wilderness, leaving the city and its villains behind, or so they thought. The training was brutal, dawn to midnight. Quirk enhancement exercises designed to push every student to their breaking point. Todoroki melting ice and creating it again, larger each time. Bakugo blasting underwater to increase volume. Kirishima hardening against increasingly heavy impacts. Everyone pushing limits. Izuku's exercises were different. Fly higher, the Pussycats instructor, Pixie Bob, told him on day 1. Your full Phoenix form tops out at what? 80 feet of wingspan? I want 100. Push the transformation further. My wingspan is fine, Yoi. Fine? Fine is the enemy of great. Push. He pushed, not because he needed to, but because the discipline was worthwhile. His full Phoenix form expanded. 90 feet. 95. The blue fire burned brighter, hotter. The control sharpened. He could manifest individual feathers now, send them flying like projectiles, each one burning with healing or destructive flame at his choice. He could also, he discovered, cover other people in his fire defensively. A cloak of blue flame that healed damage as it occurred, effectively making anyone he protected temporarily unkillable. He tested this on Kirishima during a sparring match. The redhead took a hit that should have broken his arm through his hardening. The blue flames surged around the impact point and healed the crack before it could propagate. Kirishima stared at his arm, then at Izuku. Bro, you can make other people unkillable temporarily. Drains me to maintain it on someone else. That's the most manly support ability I've ever heard of. Izuku shrugged, but he filed it away. A tool for the future. A way to protect the people around him in situations where he couldn't be everywhere at once. The camp was productive, the class grew stronger, bonds deepened, evening campfires where stories were shared and futures were discussed. Mina leaning against Izuku's shoulder watching the flames, orange ones, boring ones, she informed him, and talking about her plans. Hero agency, costume design ideas, which cities she wanted to work in. I want to be in a city with a beach, somewhere warm. Makes sense, Yoi. And you'll be wherever I am, obviously. Obviously. She grinned. He was matter-of-fact about it, but the certainty in his voice was real. They were a pair now. The class had accepted it weeks ago. The internet had accepted it. Fan accounts shipping Phoenix Acid were everywhere, running on nothing but the few photos that had leaked and the absolute confidence of teenagers who could smell romance from orbit. Day 4 of the camp. Evening. The sun was setting over the mountains. Students were gathered for dinner. The air felt wrong. Izuku stood from his seat, his head turned toward the forest, his wings, just the leading edges, blue fire flickering at his shoulder blades, manifested reflexively. The way a cat's fur rises before a storm. Midoriya? Ida noticed. Something's coming. The forest exploded. Blue fire, someone else's blue fire, hot and destructive and completely unrelated to Izuku's, tore through the tree line. A villain, Dabi. His flames annihilated 100 yards of forest in an instant, creating a wall of fire that cut off the escape route. More figures emerged. Muscular, moonfish, mustard, toga, twice. Mr. Compressed, the Vanguard Action Squad, League of Villains, here for one purpose. Find the target, a voice crackled through their communication. The Phoenix Boy. Bring him to Shigaraki. The villains spread through the forest, chaos erupted, students scattered, the Pussycats engaged. Aizawa, who'd come as escort, was already moving. Izuku's eyes were all the way open. Mina, his voice was firm, commanding in a way he usually wasn't. Stay with the group, protect the younger kids from the remedial class. Izuku, I can fight. I know you can, that's why I need you protecting people. He touched her face, brief, warm. I'm gonna clean this up. He was gone. Wings out. Airborne. Cutting through the smoke and flame toward the first villain he could find, he found Muscular first. The hulking villain, all exposed muscle fiber and unhinged aggression, was cornering Kota, the pussycat's young ward. The boy was backed against a cliff edge, crying. Small, Muscular pulled his arm back, layers of muscle piling on, compressing, building for a strike that would kill a child. Izuku hit him from above. The impact drove Muscular 6 feet into the ground. Izuku's knee was in the center of the villain's back. The blue flames erupted, offensive this time, burning against the exposed muscle fibers, searing tissue that was meant to be armor. Muscular roared. Threw Izuku off with sheer mass. Spun. Swung. Izuku caught the fist. His feet dug grooves in the earth. The force was enormous. Multiple layers of muscle fiber, adding strength upon strength. Izuku's arms strained, his teeth grit. Then his wings spread. The flames concentrated at his hands, burning hotter, penetrating through the muscle fiber layer by layer. Muscular screamed. Tried to pull back. Izuku held on, he twisted. Redirected the force. Muscular's own momentum carried him sideways, and Izuku's foot connected with the villain's temple in a roundhouse that would have decapitated someone with less reinforcement. Muscular hit the cliff face. Rock shattered. He got back up. Angry. Bleeding. All his muscle fibers deployed at once, maximum output, a mountain of flesh and power. Izuku didn't wait. He launched forward. Hybrid form full, his entire body blazing with blue phoenix fire. He drove both hands, taloned, burning, carrying the weight of a mythical zone at full output into Muscular's chest. The villain flew, off the cliff, out into the open air, trailing fire and blood and stripped muscle fiber. He hit the forest floor 200 feet below with an impact that felled trees. He didn't get back up. Izuku turned. Kota was still against the cliff wall, shaking, tiny, covered in dust. Izuku knelt. His face was gentle, the fire dimmed to a soft glow. "Hey, kid, you're safe, Yoi." Kota stared at him, at the wings, at the fire, at the boy who had just thrown a villain off a cliff like it was nothing. I'm a hero," he said it simply, like it was the easiest truth in the world. "Come on, let's get you back to the others." He picked Kota up, tucked the boy against his chest, spread his wings, they flew. The rest of the villain attack unfolded with Izuku cutting through it like a force of nature that had decided to take the situation personally. He found Dabi engaging Aizawa and dropped between them. His blue flames meeting Dabi's in a clash that sent both types of fire spiraling upward. Dabi took one look at the confrontation and retreated. He found Moonfish terrorizing Tokoyami and Shoji in the forest, the blade villain's teeth extending in every direction like a cage of razors. Izuku's talons sheared through the blades like scissors through paper. One kick put Moonfish through a tree. Done, he found Toga stalking Uraraka in the underbrush. His landing alone was enough to scatter the blood-obsessed girl. She took one look at the phoenix descending from above, squeaked "nope," and vanished into the trees. He found Compress trying to capture Bakugo. The marble villain had already compressed the blonde boy into a tiny sphere. Sleight of hand, quick and professional. Izuku landed in front of him. "Hand him over, Yoi." Compress tipped his hat. "I'm afraid I can't." Izuku's hand was around Compress's wrist before the sentence finished. He squeezed, bones creaked, the villain's composure cracked. "Drop it!" The marble fell from Compress's fingers. Bakugo reappeared, full-size, confused, angry, in the dirt beside them. Izuku released Compress's wrist. The villain cradled it against his chest, backing away. His eyes above the mask were wide. "You're quite something, young man. Leave." Compress left. He opened his communicator as he ran. "Abort. The Phoenix is here. It's over." One by one, the villains retreated. Dabi, Toga, twice. All of them pulling back, disappearing into warp gates that Kurogiri opened from a distance. The attack had failed. Their target, Izuku, was supposed to be captured. Instead, he dismantled their operation single-handedly while protecting everyone around him simultaneously. The camp gathered in the aftermath. Injuries were minor. The Pussycats had held the line, and between Izuku and Aizawa, the villains had been contained or driven off before lasting damage could be done. A few scratches, a few burns, nothing Izuku's fire couldn't handle. He walked through the gathered students, pressing his hands against every wound he found. Blue fire spreading like a tide, healing cuts and burns and bruises. Todoroki's frostbite healed. Shoji's torn arm healed. The gash on Aizawa's forearm healed. By the time he was done, the only sign that a villain attack had occurred was the destroyed forest. Every person was whole. Mina found him after. He was sitting on a fallen tree at the edge of the burned area, looking at the sky. His wings were gone. His fire was at rest. He looked, for the first time since she'd known him, tired. She sat beside him, pressed against his side, said nothing. He leaned into her, just slightly, a fraction of his weight against hers. "They came for me," he said after a long moment. "I know. They'll come again. Probably. People around me could get hurt." Mina took his hand, laced their fingers together, squeezed. "People around you could also get healed. By the guy who literally just walked through camp fixing everyone, by the guy who just beat 6 villains in 20 minutes, by the guy who makes everyone around him safer just by existing." He looked at her. "You're doing the spiral thing," she said, "the one where you try to take responsibility for everything. Stop it. We're heroes in training. This is what we signed up for." "You didn't sign up to be targeted because of me. I signed up to be next to you." Her voice was firm, certain. "Whatever that means, whatever comes with it, I'm here." He exhaled. Long, slow. "You're something else, Mina." "I know." She kissed his shoulder. "Now let's go inside. You need food and sleep, and I need to not be covered in soot." He stood, took her hand. They walked back toward the camp together. Behind them, the forest still smoldered. The villains had retreated to lick their wounds and report their failure to Shigaraki. The League would regroup. They would plan again. They would try again. But for now, tonight, the Phoenix was at rest, surrounded by people who cared about him. People who would stand beside him when the next storm came. People who had watched him burn and heal and fight and protect, and had chosen to stay anyway. Izuku Midoriya was the strongest person in this story. Everyone knew it. The villains knew it. The heroes knew it. The world was beginning to know it. But he was also, and this mattered more than any amount of power, surrounded by people who saw past the strength, who saw the boy underneath the phoenix, who saw the warmth, the humor, the care, the protectiveness that wasn't born from obligation but from love. That was what made him dangerous. That was what made him unstoppable. Because you can fight a phoenix, you can try to burn it, try to break it, try to paralyze it and cut it and blast it and crush it under the weight of a world that wasn't built for something like it. But you can't fight what a phoenix protects. You can't touch what it loves. And God help anyone who tries. The weeks that followed were full of something that resembled peace, the way a held breath resembles relaxation. Everyone knew something else was coming. The League had been bloodied at the training camp, like driven back with their tails between their legs, and Izuku Midoriya was the reason. That kind of failure breeds either surrender or escalation, and Shigaraki Tomura was the kind of person who only knew one of those options. But the world kept spinning. Classes resumed. The dormitory became home in the way that any place becomes home when you fill it with people you'd bleed for. Heights Alliance hummed with the energy of 20 teenagers who had been through fire together and come out the other side tighter than family. And one morning, Aizawa walked into class and said 2 words made half the room go pale. License exam. The Provisional Hero License Examination. The test that separated students from heroes. The certification that meant you could operate in the field, respond to emergencies, fight villains, all of it legal, all of it sanctioned. All of it real. In 2 weeks, Aizawa continued. His eyes swept the room, landed on Izuku for exactly 1 second longer than everyone else. You'll be tested alongside students from every hero school in the country. Hundreds of applicants. 2 rounds. Fail and you wait 6 months. Kaminari raised his hand. Is there any universe where Midoriya doesn't pass this in like 3 minutes? The exam tests more than combat ability, Kaminari. Aizawa's voice was dry enough to start fires. It tests judgment, teamwork, rescue capability. So Midoriya passes in 4 minutes. Be quiet. Izuku sat in the back row. Mina was beside him, always beside him, gravity doing its thing. She leaned over. You excited? For a test? For being official, licensed, a real hero. He considered this, tilted his head. I've been doing the hero thing for a while, Yoi. This just makes it legal. She poked his ribs. Try to look excited for me. He exhaled, let the corner of his mouth pull upward. Thrilled. Liar. The most thrilled, she beamed. He went back to looking out the window. The sky was too blue. The kind of day where something was going to happen. 2 weeks later, it did. The Takoba National Stadium, the biggest testing facility in the country, a sprawling complex that housed multiple urban environments, rescue zones, and combat areas. Buses from every hero school converging on the parking lot like tributaries feeding a river. Hundreds of students in hero costumes stretching, psyching up, eyeing each other with competitive hunger. Class 1A stepped off their bus in formation. Hero costumes on. Confidence varying from person to person. Bakugo radiating violence, Todoroki radiating frost, Kirishima radiating manly enthusiasm. Izuku stepped off last. His hero costume was understated, a fitted jacket in forest green with blue flame detailing along the collar and cuffs, dark pants, sturdy boots. The jacket was open at the back, 2 slits running from shoulder blade to hip, unstitched, waiting. Because when the wings came out, they came out fast, and he'd ruined enough shirts. He had his hands in his pockets before his feet hit the asphalt. The effect was immediate. Every student in the parking lot who had watched the sports festival footage, which was every student in the parking lot, turned to look. Whispers cascaded through the crowd like a wave. That's him, the Phoenix. He killed a Nomu at USJ. He caught the hero killer. Look at how tall he is. Mina walked beside him, her own costume vibrant, the purple and turquoise bodysuit with the acid-resistant material. She was grinning at the attention like it was directed at her. In a way, it was. She was the girl walking next to the Phoenix with her arm linked through his, and she was radiating the energy of someone who knew exactly how lucky she was and wanted everyone else to know it too. "They're staring," she whispered. "They always stare. It's because you look good in that jacket. It's because of the USJ footage, Mina. That too, but mostly the jacket." A group approached from the left. Matching uniforms, coordinated movement. A school crest Izuku recognized from competition databases, SAGA Academy, all female. All moving with the kind of synchronized precision that screamed rehearsal. The leader, tall, sharp-eyed, wearing a bodysuit with circuit line patterns, stopped directly in Izuku's path. Midoriya Izuku. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had practiced saying his name in front of a mirror. "Phoenix of UA. That's me, Yoi. I'm Psycho Intelli. SAGA Academy. IDQ of over 150. She pushed her glasses up. "My team and I have developed a comprehensive counter-strategy for you. We intend to eliminate you first in the combat round." Izuku looked at her. His expression was somewhere between amused and asleep. "Okay," a beat of silence. That's your response? Just okay? What else would I say? Good luck." He walked past her. Mina gave the SAI team a sympathetic wave as she passed. "He means it sincerely," Mina told them. "The good luck part, you'll need it." The SAI team watched them go. One of the girls, shorter with prediction-type marks glowing faintly on her temples, spoke first. She wasn't lying. He genuinely means the good luck. Intella's jaw worked. "Adjust the timeline. Redeploy the moment the exam starts." The first round began 30 minutes later. The rules. Each student carried 3 targets on their body. Land hits on other students' targets to eliminate them. Eliminate 2 opponents to pass the first round. Simple in theory. A war zone in practice. Begin. The stadium erupted. 500 students surging into an artificial cityscape. Powers firing in every direction. Ice walls, explosions, vine traps, sonic attacks. The air filled with the chaos of a generation trying to prove themselves. Izuku stood at the starting area. He watched the chaos for about 3 seconds. "What a pain, Yoi." His wings came out. The eruption of blue and gold drew every eye within 100 meters. That familiar 20-foot wingspan, blazing against the morning sun, casting the starting zone in azure light. Students who had been running stopped to stare. Students who had been fighting stopped mid-exchange, and the SAI team struck. It was impressive. Izuku would admit that later. The timing was flawless, 3 of them hitting simultaneously from different angles. The prediction girl had calculated his takeoff trajectory and they'd pre-positioned. A net, some kind of carbon fiber weave laced with a quirk that disrupted heat transfer, launched from a rooftop. A second girl fired a binding gel that expanded on contact, covering his wings, his shoulders, his back. A third hit him with a pulse that interfered with neural signals, a suppression-type ability aimed at disrupting the focus needed for transformation. The net wrapped around him. The gel hardened. The suppression pulse hit him square in the temple. For 1 second, Izuku was tangled, weighted. The gel was heavy and the net was pulling his wings tight against his body. His feet hit the ground, the SAGA team landed around him in a semicircle, 7 of them, all with their target striking tools raised. Intella stood at the front, glasses catching the light. Prediction. Restraint. Suppression. She counted on her fingers. 3 layers. Your heat cannot burn through the thermal neutral net. The gel hardens faster than muscle can expand against it. The neural pulse disrupts voluntary transformation. Her smile was thin and satisfied. Checkmate. Izuku stood there, wrapped in gel and netting, wings pinned, body restricted. He looked at the net. He looked at the gel. He looked at Intella. That was actually pretty good, Yoi. He tilted his head, which was about the only part of him still free to move. Still didn't work, though. His body erupted. The blue flames came from everywhere. Under the gel, through the net, from inside his chest and his spine, and the spaces between his cells. Because the thing about a mythical zone, the thing that every strategy built on conventional logic would always miss, was that you couldn't restrain fire. You could suppress a quirk. You could disrupt neural pathways that controlled biological functions. But Izuku's power lived in a place that net and gel and neural pulses could never reach. The gel boiled. It went from solid to vapor in under a second. The net, thermal neutral by design, held for exactly 1.5 seconds longer before the blue fire found frequencies that thermal neutral was never tested against. It crumbled. The suppression pulse washed over blue flames that were already healing whatever disruption it caused before the disruption could take root. Izuku stood there, fire rolling off his shoulders like water, wings free and blazing, completely unbound. The remnants of the Sei strategy drifted around him as ash. Still, he said, rolling his shoulders, genuinely impressive for a first attempt. He moved 4 seconds. That was how long it took. He crossed the gap to each of the 7 Sei students, tagging their targets with fingertips that glowed blue, the touch light enough to be gentle but fast enough to be undodgeable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tagged, eliminated, Intella was last. She stood with her tools raised, her strategy in pieces around her, watching the green-haired boy appear in front of her with the speed of something that bent physics for fun. He tapped her shoulder target. Light. Almost friendly. Your eye. Q is wasted on planning fights against people like me, Yoi. Use it for something better. She blinked. Aye. Rescue rounds where you'll shine. Trust me. He was airborne before she could respond. From the monitoring booth above the testing area, the examiners watched. 6 officials seated before banks of screens, tablets in hand, evaluation criteria pulled up on their displays. One of them, a woman with decades of examining experience, put her tablet down. Which metric do we even use for him? Combat efficiency. Another examiner pulled up numbers. He eliminated 7 opponents in 4 seconds, after being restrained by a strategy that should have taken anyone else out of commission. The passing criteria says eliminate 2 opponents. The first examiner gestured at the screen where Izuku was currently flying over the cityscape, tagging students below him with feathers he was dropping like blue rain. Each one touching a target, each one counting as a valid hit. He's eliminated 31 in 2 minutes. 33. 30. He got 2 more while I was talking. He's throwing feathers. He can do that? Apparently. A long silence as they watched the blue streak carve through the testing ground. I'm going to recommend we flag this for manual review at the scoring stage. The lead examiner wrote something on her tablet. The standard metrics were written before anyone imagined a student like this. That's one way to put it. The other way to put it is that we need new metrics. Izuku landed on a rooftop 7 minutes into the first round. He'd passed, eliminated well over the required 2 opponents, and the rules said you could stop once you'd met the threshold. He sat on the edge of the building, legs dangling, watched the chaos below. His phone buzzed. Mina? I passed? Did you pass? Of course you passed. Where are you? He typed back, roof of building 7, watching. Show off. He pocketed his phone, smiled, half a smile, the comfortable kind. The second round began an hour later. Rescue. The scenario. A massive earthquake has struck. The testing ground reconfigured. Buildings collapsed, fires burning, rubble everywhere. Actors playing civilians were scattered throughout the disaster zone. complete with realistic injuries, panic, and the kind of emotional distress that tested whether hero students could handle more than just punching. The examinees were released into the zone. Triage, rescue, evacuation. Points awarded for speed, effectiveness, communication, and civilian comfort. Izuku hit the ground running, or rather, flying. His wings carried him over the zone in seconds. His eyes, all the way open now, the drowsiness gone because people needed him, scanned the wreckage below. Heat signatures, movement, sound. The blue fire at the edges of his wings acting like sensors, pulsing when they detected injury beneath them. He found the first civilian in rubble, a woman, actor, but playing her role with dedication. Her leg was pinned under a concrete slab. She was screaming. Izuku landed beside her, his wings folded. "I've got you. I've got you. Yoi, hold still." He lifted the concrete slab, one hand, tossed it sideways like it was made of foam. Then his other hand, glowing blue warm, pressed against the leg. The injury was makeup and prosthetics, but the actress's eyes went wide at the warmth spreading over her skin. "That feels, you're safe. Can you stand?" "Yes," I think. He helped her up. Steady hands, warm eyes. He pointed toward the evacuation zone. "That way. Walk, don't run. You're okay." She went. He was already airborne again. The next civilians came faster. A man trapped in a collapsed car. Izuku tore the roof off and carried him out. Children in a daycare scenario, he wrapped his wings around all three of them and flew them to the medic station in one trip. A building on fire with people on the upper floors, he flew up, coated himself in blue flame that made the orange fire part like curtains, and carried people down two at a time. And the ones with real injuries, the ones the prosthetics team had given full-body wound effects, burns and gashes and broken limbs, Izuku's fire healed them. The prosthetics didn't know how to respond to Phoenix flames, but the warming sensation was real, the comfort was real, and every civilian he touched reported feeling genuinely better afterward. One girl, maybe 9 years old, an actress but committed to the bit, tears and dirt on her face, trapped under a piece of wall that was clearly designed to be too heavy for one person to lift, looked up at him when he knelt beside her. "You're really a bird person?" "Sort of." "Feeling better, Yoi?" She wiggled her arm, the one that had been trapped. The prosthetic wound makeup was untouched, but her face was lit up. "Yeah. Are you gonna fly me out?" "Obviously." He picked her up. She grabbed his collar with both hands. His wings came out, and the girl gasped, then laughed, then screamed with delight as they lifted off. 30 feet up, 40, 50. The rescue zone spreading out below them like a model city. Other students looked up. Other civilians looked up. Other examiners looked up. A teenager made a blue fire, carrying a laughing child through the air like it was the most natural thing in the world. Izuku set her down at the medical station. She wouldn't let go of his collar. Again. "Maybe after the exam, Yoi." "Promise?" He looked at her, at the sincerity on her small face. The actress had forgotten she was acting. "Promise." She let go. He was airborne again in seconds. The girl watched him go with the expression of someone who had just decided what she wanted to be when she grew up. In the rescue zone, other students had stopped. They were watching Izuku work, the speed, the healing, the way he moved through the disaster scenario like it was what he'd been built for. Because it was. A phoenix heals. A phoenix protects. A phoenix lifts people out of the wreckage and carries them towards safety. The examiners in their booth were writing furiously, scoring in real time. One of them, the lead, put her pen down after minute 6. "He's tripled the rescue point record." "Which record?" "All of them." The exam ended. Results were tabulated. Students gathered in the main hall, exhausted, anxious, checking their phones, checking the screens mounted on the walls where pass-fail lists would appear. The list went up. Izuku Midoriya, first place. Overall score so high that the digital display had to adjust its formatting to fit the number. He looked at the screen, at his name, at the designation below it, passed. Provisional hero license granted. He exhaled. About time, Yoi. Something hit him from behind with the force of a small hurricane made of enthusiasm and pink skin. Mina crashed into his back, arms locking around his neck, legs wrapping around his waist, her full body weight hanging from him like a koala that had decided this tree was its forever home. "We're licensed. We're real heroes. Izuku, we did it!" He stood there, perfectly balanced. Her weight on his back meant nothing to a body that could throw buildings. His hands came up and held her legs where they'd locked around his hips, steadying her, keeping her in place. "You did it. I was just there." "Stop being humble. It doesn't suit you." "I'm not being humble. I knew I'd pass." She bit his shoulder, through the costume material. He sighed, the sigh of a man who had accepted his fate long ago. "You're gonna leave a mark, Yoi." "Good." From 20 feet away, the rest of Class 1A watched this scene unfold. Kirishima had his phone out, recording. "Content," he said reverently. Kaminari was also recording. "The internet is going to lose it." "They already lost it," Sero observed. "They lost it at the sports festival. Everything since then has just been aftershocks." Bakugo walked past the group. His own name was on the pass list, high, but below Izuku's by a margin that made his teeth ache. He looked at the screen. He looked at Izuku with Mina on his back, laughing at something she'd whispered in his ear. His jaw tightened, his fists sparked. Then he kept walking. Progress. Of a kind. 3 months later, the Shi Hasaikai operation landed on Izuku's desk like a bomb wrapped in paperwork. It started with Sir Night-Eye. The man was exactly what his reputation suggested: tall, severe, wearing a suit that probably cost more than a month's rent. He looked at Izuku across a conference table in a UA meeting room with eyes that could literally see the future and said, "You're not what I predicted." Izuku was slouching in his chair, half-lidded eyes, arms crossed, looking at the former sidekick of All Might with polite disinterest. "I've used foresight on thousands of people." Night-Eye's voice was measured, analytical. "The futures I see are fixed, set." He paused. "I cannot see yours." Izuku considered this for half a second, his head tilted, the micro-movement he made when something was genuinely interesting. "Maybe futures don't work on things that can't die, Yoi." Night-Eye had no answer for that. His mouth opened, closed. His fingers adjusted his glasses, a nervous tell that he would hate knowing was visible. "Regardless," he recovered. "I'm bringing you in on an operation, the Shi Hasaikai, a Yakuza organization led by a man named Kai Chisaki. Overhaul, the quirk-destroying drug." Izuku's voice was even. "I've heard rumors. They're worse than rumors." Night-Eye placed a photo on the table. A girl, small, white hair, red eyes, a horn on her forehead pulsing with something that looked like barely contained energy, bandages on her arms. The look on her face was Izuku's. Izuku sat up, his eyes went open. "All the way. Who is she?" "Her name is Eri. She's 6 years old. Chisaki is using her body to manufacture the drug. Her quirk, Rewind, cycles biological matter backward through time. He's been extracting components from her." Night-Eye swallowed. "For years." The room temperature rose 3 degrees, blue fire flickered at Izuku's knuckles. Visible. Alive. Angry in a way that his fire rarely was, because Izuku's fire was warm, healing, protective. But there was another side to Phoenix Flames, the side that burned. "When do we go in, Yoi?" "The operation is scheduled for..." "I didn't ask about the operation, Suma. I asked, when do we go in?" Night-Eye looked at him, at the fire on his hands, at the eyes that had gone from half-closed to fully open in the span of a sentence, at the set of his jaw. 1 week. Make it sooner. The intelligence. A child is being cut apart, Night-Eye. Izuku's voice was soft, low. The fire burned brighter. "Every day we weigh, she suffers. Make it sooner." Night-Eye sat with that for a long moment, then he nodded. 3 days. 3 days. Izuku stood. The fire receded. His eyes dimmed back to their usual half-mast. He picked up the photo of Eri and looked at it for a long moment before setting it down. 3 days. Yoi. I'll be there. He walked out. Night-Eye sat alone in the conference room for a full minute. His hands were trembling. He'd faced All Might in his prime. He'd worked alongside the symbol of peace at the height of his power. And that boy, that teenager with the blue fire and the lazy eyes, had just made him feel something that he could only call certainty. The certain knowledge that Overhaul was going to die. 3 days later, the raid assembled. Heroes from multiple agencies converging on the Hasaikai compound at dawn. Fat Gum and his team. Ryukyu and her interns. Night-Eye's own agency. UA students who had been cleared for operation involvement. Kirishima, Uraraka, Tsuyu, Amajiki. And Izuku, the briefing was fast. Maps of the compound. Known quirk users inside. The labyrinth beneath the main building. Shifting walls, multiple defensive layers. Chisaki's personal guard waiting at the center. Chisaki's quirk allows him to disassemble and reassemble anything he touches at the atomic level, Night-Eye said. pointing at a diagram. One touch and he can unmake a person. He can also reconstruct the environment, walls, floors, weapons. He shapes reality at contact range. And the girl? Izuku asked. Likely in the deepest part of the compound, behind every defense he has. Izuku nodded. Once. I'll go straight to her. The labyrinth is designed to... I'll go straight to her, Night-Eye. The heroes exchanged glances. Night-Eye opened his mouth, closed it, and decided that arguing with the Phoenix about tactical approach was a battle he would lose harder than whatever Chisaki had planned. Fine. Everyone else takes the standard route, clears the defenses, provides distraction. Works for me, Yoi. The raid began at 6:04 a.m. The front entrance exploded inward. Heroes poured through. The Hasaikai's outer guards engaged immediately. Quirk users with combat training, Yakuza discipline, the desperate energy of people defending their territory. Izuku went through the ceiling. His wings erupted as he launched from the ground outside the compound. Straight up, 200 feet, then a full-speed dive at the building's roof. He hit it like a meteor. His phoenix form, just hybrid, just the wings and the talons and the fire, punched through reinforced concrete like it was drywall. Through the roof, through the floor beneath, through the next floor. His body trailing blue fire that sealed the tunnel he made behind him, preventing anyone from following. He punched through 3 floors in under 4 seconds and hit the entrance to the underground labyrinth at speed. The labyrinth was everything the briefing said. A maze of shifting walls, rooms that rotated, corridors that led nowhere. Designed by Chisaki's personal architect to disorient and trap, Izuku flew through it. When the walls shifted, he went through them. Talons through concrete. Wings beating in enclosed spaces that were too small for flight in any conventional sense. The fire burned footholds where he needed them. The walls tried to close around him and he tore them open with his hands. The labyrinth was designed for people who would walk, who would pause, who would get lost. Izuku was a straight line moving at 60 miles per hour. The Hasaikai enforcers who were stationed throughout the labyrinth barely had time to register him passing. 1. A large man with a quirk that generated barriers threw up a wall of energy. Izuku went through it without slowing. The barrier broke against his wings like glass against stone. The enforcer stumbled backward, reaching for something, and Izuku was already past him. Another, a woman who could manipulate gravity in a limited radius, pulled at Izuku's body, trying to drag him down, to pin him. His wings beat against the gravitational pull with force that was simply greater. She was thrown backward by the wind displacement. A third enforcer stepped out of an alcove with a needle. One of the quirk-destroying bullets. He aimed. He fired. The dart hit Izuku's shoulder, punched through the costume material. The liquid inside, concentrated, refined from Ares' blood, designed to permanently destroy the quirk factor, entered his bloodstream. Izuku's body registered the foreign substance. Blue flames erupted from every pore. Every cell. The fire didn't just burn. It hunted. It found the drug at the molecular level, and it burned through every molecule of it in under 10 seconds. The fire recognized the substance the way an immune system recognizes a virus, and it responded with the same overwhelming force. Izuku pulled the dart from his shoulder. Looked at it. Looked at the enforcer, who was standing with his empty dart gun and an expression that was rapidly transitioning from confidence to horror. You rewrote the biology of every cell in my body, Yoi. He dropped the dart. You're gonna need more than that, he continued. The enforcer did not try to stop him again. The labyrinth gave way to a final corridor. Long. Straight. The walls were reinforced with something heavier than the rest, a final defensive layer. At the end of it, a door. Massive. Sealed, Izuku hit it at full speed. The door came off its hinges and flew into the room beyond, a chunk of metal and concrete sailing through open air and crashing into the far wall. The room was large, vaulted ceiling, medical equipment lining the walls, tables with straps, drawers full of needles and vials and things that a child should never have seen up close. And in the corner, Eri, small, white hair, red eyes wide, her horn pulsing with erratic energy. She was curled into herself on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees, bandages fresh on her wrists. She looked up when the door exploded inward and her body flinched, the full-body flinch of someone who expected every loud sound to be followed by pain. Between them, overhaul. Chisaki stood in the center of the room. His mask was white, beak-shaped, covering the lower half of a face that held gold eyes and trimmed brown hair. His gloves were immaculate. His posture was straight. He looked at Izuku with the expression of a man who was irritated that his schedule had been disrupted. The Phoenix. His voice was smooth. Unsurprised. I expected you would come for her. Sentimental. Izuku stood in the doorway, the remnants of the door settling around his feet, his wings folded against his back, fire dimmed to a steady glow. His eyes were on Eri, fixed on her, taking in every bandage, every flinch, every sign of what had been done. Then his eyes moved to Chisaki. Step away from her, Yoi. Or what? Chisaki raised one hand, gloves peeling off with practiced ease. You'll heal? That's what you do, isn't it? You burn and you rebuild, over and over. He tilted his head. I can deconstruct faster than you can reconstruct. I've studied you. Every video, every report. You studied footage. Izuku took a step into the room. Footage from when I was holding back. Chisaki's eyes narrowed, just slightly. Izuku took another step. I'm going to tell you once. Move away from the girl. Let her come to me. She belongs to me. Chisaki's voice was flat, possessive, the way someone talks about equipment. She is the key to my plan. She is the future of... She is a child. Izuku's voice dropped. The fire burned brighter. And you are out of chances. Chisaki touched the ground. The floor erupted. Matter deconstructed and reconstructed in real time. Spikes of stone and metal launching upward at Izuku's body. The ceiling came down. The walls folded inward. Chisaki reshaped the room itself into a weapon. A cage, a killing box designed to crush whatever was inside. The spikes hit Izuku. Through his chest. Through his shoulder. Through his leg. The ceiling pinned his wings. The walls compressed around him. For one instant, Izuku was impaled in 3 places and buried in rubble. Whoosh, dot, blue fire, everywhere. The wounds sealed around the spikes, and then his body shifted. Going intangible, going to flame, the physical form dissolving into pure phoenix fire that couldn't be touched by matter because it wasn't matter anymore. He flowed through the rubble, through the spikes, through the closing walls. He reformed on the other side, whole, unhurt, standing 3 feet closer to Chisaki than before. Chisaki's eyes widened. He touched the floor again, faster this time, desperate. The entire room went to pieces. Every surface deconstructed and reformed as a wave of destruction aimed at Izuku. Izuku walked through it. Every spike that hit him was healed. Every wall that crushed him was phased through. Every deconstruction that tried to unmake his flesh was answered by blue flames that reconstructed faster than Overhaul could destroy. Because Chisaki's ability worked at the atomic level and Izuku's fire worked at the level of the soul, you could take apart atoms. You could rearrange molecules. You could unmake tissue and scatter cells and turn bone to dust, but you couldn't kill something that existed beyond atoms. This is impossible. Chisaki was backing up. His composure cracking, his gold eyes showing white at the edges. You should be dust. I deconstructed your heart. Grew a new one, Yoi. Izuku was close now, 5 feet. His eyes were fully open, the blue fire wrapping around his arms, his shoulders climbing up his neck. His talons manifested, long, curved, burning with flame hot enough to melt steel. I gave you a chance to step aside. Chisaki lunged, both hands forward, maximum power, full-body deconstruction aimed at Izuku's head. The touch connected. His fingers pressed against Izuku's face. The deconstruction started. The reconstruction was faster. Izuku's hand closed around Chisaki's wrists. Both of them, in one grip. The talons punched through the man's forearms, pinning the hands in place, severing tendons, making the fingers go limp. Chisaki screamed, high and sharp. The sound of a man who had never felt real pain until this moment. The blue flame surged up the talons and into Chisaki's arms. Burning along nerve clusters, finding the pathways that connected quirk to body and cauterizing them with fire that was made to heal, which meant it understood biology well enough to destroy it with surgical purpose. Overhaul's quirk died in his arms. The connection severed. The power going silent, Chisaki dangled from Izuku's grip, arms ruined, quirk dead. The mask had fallen off at some point. His face was exposed, young, handsome, contorted in agony and disbelief. You can't. His voice was a rasp. I am rebuilding the world. I am fixing what quirks ruined. Izuku looked at him, then past him. At Eri. At the girl still curled in the corner, watching with eyes that had seen too much already. This is for Eri, Yoi. His other hand came up. Open palm against Chisaki's chest, the blue flames concentrated, hot, final, carrying the weight of every wound inflicted on a child over years of suffering. One pulse. Chisaki's eyes went wide, then empty. Izuku let go. The body fell. He stood over it for exactly 1 second. Then he stepped over it and walked to the corner of the room where Eri was pressed against the wall. His fire dimmed. Everything about him softened. The posture, the expression, the energy. He knelt. Slowly, making himself smaller, his wings disappeared entirely, his talons retracted. Just a boy, kneeling in front of a scared child, with warm hands and gentle eyes. "You're safe." His voice was low, the softest version of himself that existed. "The man who hurt you is gone. He can never touch you again." Eri stared at him, her small body trembling, her horn pulsing with unstable energy. "You have fire." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Doesn't it hurt?" "It's warm fire, the kind that makes things better." He extended his hand, palm up, blue flames dancing across his knuckles, visible, pretty, harmless. An offering. She watched the fire. Her breathing slowed. Something in her face, the fear that had been carved there by years of pain, loosened. Just a fraction. She reached out, her small fingers touched his palm. The blue fire spread, gently like water finding its level. It rolled up her arm, across her bandages, over the places where needles had been and skin had been taken, and her body had been used as a resource by someone who never saw her as a person. The fire found every wound, fresh and old, every scar, every bruise still fading from weeks ago, and it healed them. Eri gasped. The sensation, warm and soft and safe, the pain that had been her constant companion for as long as she could remember, was receding, disappearing, being replaced by something that felt like sunshine on her face after years in a room with no windows. Izuku's other hand came up and rested on her head, light, protective. "There you go." She made a sound that might have been a word but came out as a sob instead. And then she was leaning forward, small body pressing against his chest, fingers gripping his costume, her face buried against his shoulder. She was shaking, crying. The kind of crying that comes after holding everything in for years. Izuku wrapped his arms around her. His wings manifested, the leading edges only, soft as down, curling around both of them like a shield, like a promise. "You're okay, Yoi. I've got you." She fell asleep in his arms before they made it back to the surface. The scene that greeted the heroes above ground was this. Izuku Midoriya walking out of the compound entrance carrying a sleeping child wrapped in blue flame wings. His costume was torn in multiple places. Chisaki's blood was on his hands, drying, red, human. His face was serene, half-closed eyes, the gentle expression of someone carrying something precious. Every hero on the scene stopped. Fat Gum put down the enforcer he was restraining. Ryukyu, in dragon form, shrank back to human size and stared. Kirishima, who had been fighting his way through the upper levels with Amajiki, emerged from the building behind Izuku and looked at the sleeping child and then at his friend, and his mouth opened with nothing to say. Night Eye was the first to approach. He looked at Izuku, at Eri, at the blood. Chisaki, dead. The word hung in the air. Night Eye's face went through a complex journey of expression, surprise, understanding, something that might have been relief. The girl, healed. She needs a hospital for monitoring, sleep, safety. Izuku adjusted his hold on Eri. She shifted in her sleep, gripped his collar tighter. "I burned out what I could find. The horn's still unstable, but the physical damage is fixed. You..." Night Eye looked at the sleeping child's face. Peaceful. Unmarked. "You healed years of damage? Everything the fire could reach. That's..." Night Eye trailed off. He removed his glasses, cleaned them on his tie, put them back on. "Thank you." Izuku nodded. "Ambulance? This way." The ambulance team was gentle, professional. They took Eri from Izuku's arms with careful hands, and Eri stirred, immediately reaching backward, fingers grasping. "Where? I'm here, Yoi." Izuku stepped into her line of sight. "I'll be at the hospital when you wake up." She looked at him, red eyes still half dreaming. Her hand found his finger and held it. "Promise?" "Promise." She let go. The ambulance doors closed. Izuku watched it drive away. He stood there, blood on his hands, costume in pieces, the weight of what he'd done and what he'd saved pressing against him from both sides. He exhaled. Long, slow. "Someone got Mina's number?" he asked the nearest hero. What?" "I need someone to tell my girlfriend I'm okay before she sees the news and panics, Yoi." Kirishima was already on his phone. "On it, bro." On it. The hospital was clean and bright and smelled like disinfectant. Izuku sat in a chair beside Eri's bed, still in his torn costume, still with traces of blood on his forearms that he hadn't bothered to wash off. The hospital staff had tried to check him for injuries. He'd told them 3 times that he didn't get injured. They'd eventually accepted this with the bewildered compliance of people who had seen the news footage. Eri was asleep, properly asleep. The kind of sleep that comes after years of being afraid to close your eyes. Her monitors beeped steadily. Her face was peaceful. Izuku was also asleep. He'd tipped his head back against the wall and drifted off within minutes of sitting down. His breathing was even. His hands were folded across his stomach. One foot propped up on the bed rail. Mina found him like this. She'd gotten Kirishima's message. She'd gotten on a train. She'd gotten to the hospital in record time, burst through the doors, charmed her way past 3 reception desks, and found the room. She stood in the doorway. Izuku asleep in a chair. Eri asleep in the bed. The child's small hand had at some point reached out in sleep and found Izuku's wrist, and her fingers were curled around it, holding on even unconscious. Mina's hands went over her mouth. Her eyes filled. She took a photo. She would cherish it forever. Frame it eventually, put it in a place where she'd see it every morning for the rest of her life. The moment that confirmed everything she already knew about the boy she'd chosen. Then she entered the room on tiptoe and pressed a kiss to the top of his head. He stirred. It's me. Mina, his eyes opened, half-mast, finding her immediately. You came. Obviously I came. She pulled a second chair close and sat leaning her shoulder against his. You're okay? Always, Yoi. Is she? Healed. Sleeping. Safe. Mina looked at Eri, at the small face, at the hand gripping Izuku's wrist. She's holding on to you. Yeah. Kids know. Mina's voice was soft, full of something enormous. They know who's safe. Izuku said nothing. His free hand found Mina's and laced their fingers together. His thumb moved across her knuckles. Slow. Comfortable. They sat there, in the hospital room. 2 teenagers and a child who was sleeping without fear for the first time in her life. Outside, the world reacted. The Hasaikai's fall was major news. Overhaul's death was headline material. A villain killed during a hero operation by a student, raising all the questions that such things always raise. But the footage from inside the compound, from cameras that had recorded Izuku's passage through the labyrinth, his fight with Chisaki, his healing of Eri, that footage went to the authorities first. When they reviewed it, when they saw what Chisaki had done to that child, what he had been doing for years, and what Izuku had done to stop it, the conversations about excessive force ended before they started. Eri woke the next morning. The first thing she said was, "Is he still here?" The nurse went to get him. He'd only left for 20 minutes, to shower, to change, to come back. Mina had brought him fresh clothes. He walked into the room in a plain t-shirt and jeans, and Eri's eyes found him immediately. She reached for his sleeve. He sat on the edge of her bed and let her grab onto him. She didn't let go for 2 hours. The weeks after the Hasaikai raid brought Eri into Izuku's orbit permanently. She was placed under UA's care. The school had the resources, the security, and the personnel to provide what she needed. And what she needed, more than anything else, that was the green-haired boy with the warm fire and the soft voice. Izuku visited her every day, without fail. Before class in the morning and after training in the evening, he'd sit with her, read to her, let her watch his blue fire dance across his knuckles while she traced the patterns with her eyes. Sometimes he healed. Small things, the aches that came from a body recovering, the occasional headache when her horn flared. Sometimes he just sat. Mina came too. Often. She brought energy and color and laughter into the room in a way that made Eri's eyes go wide and then bright. Mina taught her card games. Mina brought her snacks that weren't hospital food. Mina told her stories about UA, about the class, about training, about the time Kaminari accidentally electrocuted himself and his brain went to Wii mode for an hour. Eri laughed at that one. A real laugh. Small and surprised, like her body had forgotten how to do it and was remembering. Izuku watched her laugh. And something in his chest, something warm that had nothing to do with Phoenix Fire, settled into place. The joint training exercise with Class 1B came on a Thursday that was unremarkable in every way, except that it would become yet another entry in the growing legend of Izuku Midoriya, doing something absurd and treating it like taking out the trash. Vlad King. Class 1B's homeroom teacher had been preparing for this for weeks. His students had strategy documents, playbooks. They'd analyzed every piece of footage from Class 1A's performances. They had counter plans for Todoroki's fire and ice, for Bakugo's explosions, for Tokoyami's shadow. For Izuku, they had a 14-person coordination plan that involved 3 quirks that interfered with heat absorption, a ground containment strategy to prevent flight, and a dedicated suppression team whose only job was keeping the Phoenix out of the sky. Vlad King was proud of this plan. He'd worked on it with his students for 3 full evenings. The matchups were announced. First round, Izuku, Tsuyu, Uraraka, Shinso, who had transferred into the hero course, and Kirishima versus 5 Class 1B students. The 5 students from Class 1B walked to their starting position with the focused energy of soldiers who knew they were facing something overwhelming, but had a plan. Vlad King watched from the observation booth. His strategy notes were in front of him. His confidence was reasonable. It was a good plan. Start! Class 1B's team deployed immediately. 2 went underground, 1 with an earth-burrowing quirk, 1 with a root system quirk that could grab through soil. 2 took high ground, 1 with a cold generation ability, 1 with a quirk that created a dampening field over a 20-meter radius. The 5th, their captain, a tall boy with a flexible body quirk, served as coordinator from a central position. The trap was set. They waited. Izuku walked into the engagement zone, hands in his pockets, strolling, his team behind him, Kirishima grinning, Tsuyu observing, Uraraka ready, Shinso strategizing. The ground grabbed first. Root systems erupting from beneath the soil, wrapping around Izuku's ankles, pulling him downward. At the same moment, the cold generation quirk activated from above, a blast of freezing air aimed at his wings, which weren't out yet but they were anticipating. The dampening field hit next, a bubble of energy that was designed to suppress heat generation, to smother fire, to reduce combustion to nothing. Izuku sank into the ground up to his knees. The cold hit his body. The dampening field wrapped around him. In the observation booth, Vlad King leaned forward. Then Izuku's body ignited. The blue flames didn't work on conventional heat principles. The dampening field was designed for combustion, oxygen and fuel and ignition temperature. Izuku's fire ran on the fundamental energy of a mythical Zoan devil fruit. It burned because it was alive. Because it was him. The dampening field hit Phoenix flames and found nothing to suppress. The cold evaporated. The roots around his ankles caught fire and withdrew. The soil beneath him blazed blue, and he rose out of the ground on wings that had erupted through his costume's back slits like the sun breaking through a cloud bank. He was airborne in a heartbeat. The 2 students on high ground stared up at him. Their suppression strategy, cold and dampening, had accomplished exactly 0. The Phoenix was in the sky. Their plan was in pieces. Izuku dove. 3 minutes. That was how long the round lasted. 3 minutes from start to finish. He tagged all 5 Class 1B students, moving through them like wind through tall grass. A tap on a shoulder here, a brush against a target there. His fire left gentle marks where it touched. Warm, painless, but unmistakably a tag. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't need to. The gap between what they'd planned for and what he actually was made force unnecessary. It was almost kind how fast he ended it. He spared them the drawn-out realization that most opponents got. Match 1. Class 1A wins. The proctor's voice rang across the training ground. In the observation booth, Vlad King stared at the monitors. The fight, all 3 minutes of it, played back on his screen. He watched his strategy deploy. He watched it fail. He watched a 16-year-old fly through a containment plan designed by 15 people and resolve the entire engagement with casual efficiency. He picked up his strategy notes, looked at them, turned them face down on the desk. He did not look at them again. The waiting area between matches was chaos of the good kind. Class 1A buzzing with post-match energy, Kaminari providing running commentary on every exchange he could see from the stands, Kirishima explaining why what Izuku just did was, dude, come on, we knew this would happen. Mina was there. She'd been in a later match, hers was coming up, but for now, she was camped out in Izuku's general vicinity, draped across a bench with her head near his lap and her legs hanging off the other end. You broke their strategy in like 4 seconds. Their strategy was fine, Yoi. It just assumed my fire follows physics. Does it? Sometimes. When it feels like it. She looked up at him from her upside-down position. Your fire has moods? It's part of me. I have moods. You have one mood. Sleepy. That's a mood. She reached up and poked his jaw. He looked down at her with a half-smile. I'm taking your jacket after my match, she informed him. It's yours. It's been mine for months. I know. Just confirming. She grinned. For the record. From across the waiting area, Bakugo watched this exchange. His arms were crossed, his jaw was tight. The familiar expression, the one that was 50% rage and 50% something else that he refused to name. He looked away before anyone caught him looking. Todoroki stood beside Bakugo, tea in hand, observing with his usual measured expression that had, over the months, softened into something almost companionable. You're staring. Shut up, half and half. He's happy. Bakugo's jaw tightened further. I said, shut up. Todoroki sipped his tea, said nothing else, but the corner of his mouth twitched upward. The joint training ended with Class 1A winning the overall event. The margin was decisive. Class 1B was talented, genuinely talented, with creative quirks and smart strategies, but the gap that Izuku's presence created in the overall scoring was impossible to overcome. Monoma, the copycat from Class 1B, tried to copy Izuku's power during the 4th round. He touched Izuku's arm, activated his quirk, nothing happened. His face went white. It's empty. His voice was small, lost. There's nothing there for me to copy. It's a devil fruit, Yoi. Izuku shrugged. Different system. Monoma sat down on the ground. He sat there for all the months passed. Training intensified. The hero world was shifting. Everyone could feel it. The ground beneath the industry was moving, getting ready for something. Intelligence agencies were reporting unusual movements. The League of Villains had gone to ground after the training camp failure. But going to ground wasn't the same as going away. Izuku felt it too. The way you feel weather changing before the clouds appear. Something was building. Something was coming for him and for everything he'd built around himself. He trained harder. His full phoenix form expanded, 100 feet of wingspan blazing against the sky during evening practice sessions that made the surrounding countryside think UA was on fire. He refined his control. Individual feathers that could seek targets independently, healing flames that could cover a wider area, offensive bursts that could level structures when needed, and he started going on patrol. Licensed now, cleared for fieldwork, he took evening shifts in the city around UA, flying high above, invisible against the night sky, except for the faint blue glow that people were starting to associate with safety. When you saw blue fire in the sky, it meant the Phoenix was watching. It meant you were okay. He stopped 3 muggings in his first week. A car accident where the driver would have died from internal bleeding. Izuku landed on the roof of the car, reached in, and healed the man before the ambulance arrived. A building fire where a family was trapped on the 4th floor, wings out, through the window, family out in 30 seconds. He never stayed for the cameras. He never gave interviews. The news showed footage, grainy, far away, the blue fire visible but the face obscured, and the legend grew, the Phoenix of UA, the blue flame in the sky, the hero who appeared and healed and vanished. You could get endorsement deals. Mina told him one evening, scrolling through fan accounts that had accumulated millions of followers just from tracking his patrols. Like, serious money. A cologne brand asked about you on the school's inquiry page. A cologne brand. They want to call it Phoenix Rising. Absolutely not. But Izuku, pass, Yoi. You'd smell so good, though. I already smell fine. She leaned into him and buried her face in his neck. An exaggerated inhale. Yeah, you do. A pause. You smell like warm. That's the fire. It's nice. He put his arm around her. She settled against him, on the couch, in the common area, where Kaminari was losing badly at a video game and Sarah was providing commentary and Todoroki was watching the game with the expression of someone who had never played a video game in his life but was trying to understand the appeal through observation alone. Home. This was home. These people. This building. This life that he had built From the ashes of a boy who cried alone on a beach at 10 years old, he would protect it. Whatever came next, he would protect all of it. What came next was the end of the world. It started with intelligence. A massive coordinated report from multiple agencies dropping on the Hero Public Safety Commission's desk at 3 a.m. on a morning that history would remember. The Meta Liberation Army, a 100,000-member organization that preached quirk freedom through force, had merged with the League of Villains. The resulting entity, the Paranormal Liberation Front. 10,000 active combatants, coordinated infrastructure, funding, and a leader, Shigaraki Tamura. But a different Shigaraki. A changed one. He had undergone something in the months since Izuku had last seen him. A procedure at Jaku General Hospital that had rewired him at the genetic level. Enhanced. Evolved. All for one's direct fingerprints on the modification, the vestige of the ancient villain rebuilding his successor from the inside out. Shigaraki's decay had evolved with him. It could spread through the ground now, not just what he touched, but outward from the point of contact in waves. It could jump through connected surfaces. It could propagate through the air itself under the right conditions. The estimated casualty radius of a single activation was 2 city blocks. And he wanted Izuku. The intelligence was explicit. Communications intercepted from within the PLF's command structure. Capture the Phoenix. Priority 1. Shigaraki wants him alive, if possible. If possible was doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. The heroes responded with their largest coordinated operation in history. 2 simultaneous strikes. One at the Jaku Hospital facility where the PLF's research was concentrated. One at the Gunga Mountain Villa where the PLF's leadership was stationed. Every available pro-hero, every sidekick, every resource the industry could muster. And Class 2A, because they were second years now, licensed, and this was what they'd trained for. The morning of the operation, Izuku stood in the deployment area at Jaku with the sun just starting to rise. His hero costume was refined from the original. Still green, still open-backed, but reinforced where reinforcement could help and stripped down where mobility mattered. The blue flame detailing caught the early light. Mina was with the Gunga team. Different front, miles apart. They'd known for days that the operation would split them up. The morning before deployment, she'd found him in his room, and they'd stood there for a long time, her forehead against his chest, his wings wrapped around them both, saying nothing because everything important was already understood. "Come back," she'd said. "Always, Yoi." "I mean it. I know." His hand on the back of her head, thumb against her horn. "You come back too." "I will." She looked up, golden eyes. "Absolute. I'm going to be insufferable about this afterward, crying and clinging and the whole thing." I'd expect nothing less. She'd kissed him. Long. Real. The kind that holds everything it can because it doesn't know if the next chance is guaranteed. Then they'd separated. Buses to different staging areas. Phones on silent. The war beginning. Now, at Jaku, Izuku stood beside Endeavor, Mirko, and Crust, the frontline heroes assigned to the hospital breach. Behind them, support teams, students, medical personnel. The air was thick with tension. "The target inside is the enhancement chamber," Endeavor said, his flames burning low along his shoulders. "Whatever Shigaraki was subjected to, it's in there. Our goal is to interrupt the procedure if it's still ongoing, and to neutralize the PLF assets protecting it." Izuku nodded. His eyes were all the way open. "The Nomu facility is also on site," Mirko added. The rabbit hero was bouncing on her heels, murder in her eyes. "Multiple high ends. Expect resistance." "I'll handle the Nomus, Yoi." Mirko looked at him, grinned, the wide, feral grin of someone who recognized a kindred spirit. "Race you. You'll lose." "Ha! I like this kid." The operation began at dawn. The hospital's outer walls came down simultaneously, breached at 4 points by coordinated hero teams. The PLF's defensive force inside scrambled. The opening minutes were a storm of powers clashing. Heroes versus liberation soldiers in every corridor, every stairwell, every room. Izuku went straight up, through the building. The same approach as Hasaikai, wings burning, body ascending, punching through floors with fists and momentum. He rose through the hospital like a bullet fired upward through paper, trailing blue fire that sealed each breach behind him. He found the Nomu chamber on the 7th sublevel. The room was massive, industrial. Tubes lining the walls, dozens of them, each containing a body in various stages of modification. The refined high-end Nomu, each one designed with multiple quirks, enhanced regeneration, and just enough intelligence to follow complex orders. 15 were active, out of their tubes, moving. They turned toward him as one. 15 pairs of hollow eyes. 15 bodies designed to kill the symbol of peace. 15 creatures that heroes had died fighting one at a time. Izuku's full phoenix form erupted. The transformation was instant now. Practiced, refined, as natural as breathing. His human shape expanded outward in a cascade of blue and gold fire until it wasn't a boy standing in that chamber. It was a phoenix. 100 feet of wingspan compressed into the available space, the wings touching both walls, the fire blazing against the ceiling, the sheer presence of the thing filling the room with heat and light that made the Nomu stumble. He let out a cry. The phoenix scream, the sound that hit bone deep, that triggered the ancient animal response in anything with a brain. Most of the Nomu flinched, even the engineered ones, even the things that had been stripped of fear and rebuilt for war. Then he moved. The first Nomu, a winged type, fast, multi-armed, rushed him from the left. Izuku's talon caught it by the throat. One squeeze, the fire poured in. The regeneration that kept the Nomu alive tried to fight the phoenix flames and lost in under 3 seconds. The body went limp. He threw it into the next one, a massive tank type, and the collision sent both crashing into the far wall. 3 more came at once. From above, from the sides. Izuku's wings swept, a backbeat that generated a wall of pressurized air and fire. The 3 Nomu were thrown backward like leaves in a gale. He was on one before it hit the ground. Talons through the brain, blue fire following, done. The remaining 11 rushed him together. All at once. A coordinated assault that should have been overwhelming through sheer mass. Izuku went to full flame. His body dissolved, became fire entirely. The Nomu charged through where he'd been and found nothing to hit. Only flames that burned them from the inside as they passed through. He reformed behind the pack. His wings swept forward, each feather a projectile, each one burning with offensive fire that sought flesh and embedded. 11 feathers. 11 targets. Each one finding a Nomu's central nerve cluster and burning through it like a coal through ice. 90 seconds. 15 Nomu. All down. The remaining tubes, the ones still incubating, he burned. Every single one. Blue fire washing over the glass chambers, cooking what was inside, ensuring that whatever All for One had been building would never wake up. When it was done, Izuku shrank back to human form. The room was destroyed, burning, blue fire eating through everything that deserved to be destroyed. He exhaled. 14 left on the roster, yoi. He cracked his neck, whereas the building shook, from above, from below. The vibration was wrong. Too deep, too fundamental. The floor cracked, the ceiling groaned, dust fell in sheets, something was waking up. Izuku flew upward, through the 7 sublevels, through the main building, through the roof, bursting into open air above the hospital just in time to see it happen. The hospital's east wing collapsed. All of it. Every floor folding inward like a house of cards. And from the wreckage, rising, a figure emerged that was everything the intelligence had warned about and worse. Shigaraki Tomura stood in the ruins. And he was different. The body was enhanced, larger, denser, wrapped in cords of muscle that hadn't been there before. His hair was longer. His face was scarred with new lines, surgical traces from the procedure. His eyes were red and burning with something that went past madness into conviction. The severed hand that he used to wear on his face was gone. He was beyond that now. His hand touched the ground. Decay erupted, a wave. Visible, cascading, turning concrete and steel and earth to dust in an expanding circle. The hospital's remaining structure disintegrated. Heroes on the ground scrambled, running, flying, anything to get off the surface before the wave reached them. Some made it, some didn't. 2 heroes, sidekicks, young, turned to ash before they could take a second step. Izuku watched from above, his jaw set. The wave kept going, building to building, street to street, 3 blocks of the surrounding area turning to gray dust in seconds. The evacuation team scrambled, civilians running, screaming, the sound of a world coming apart. Shigaraki looked up, across the expanding field of destruction. His eyes found the blue flame hovering in the sky. There you are. Izuku descended. His wings held him at 50 feet, above the decay wave, above the spreading destruction, looking down at the man who had been hunting him for over a year. Here I am, Yoi. Shigaraki grinned. wide, the kind of grin that had too many teeth and too much hunger behind it. I've been thinking about you, every day since USJ, every day since your friends stopped my people in the forest, every day since you took everything I built and burned it. His fingers twitched. The decay pulsed outward another meter. I'm gonna take you apart, Phoenix. I'm gonna find out what's underneath all that fire. People have tried, Yoi. I'm different now. I can see that. Then come down. Izuku dove, he hit Shigaraki at speed, full hybrid form, talons forward, fire blazing. The impact cratered what remained of the ground beneath them. Shigaraki's enhanced body absorbed it, the shock distribution through modified tissue, the durability of whatever All For One had laced into his cells, and his hand came up to grab Izuku's face. The decay hit Izuku's skull, turned to dust, his jaw, his eyes, everything above the shoulders, gone in an instant, disintegrated. The absolute pinnacle of destruction meeting the absolute pinnacle of regeneration. 5 seconds. The blue fire poured upward from his neck like water filling a mold. Bone reformed, brain rebuilt, skin sealed, eyes reopened, green, alive, pissed off in a way that Izuku Midoriya almost never allowed himself to be. His reformed mouth was 2 inches from Shigaraki's face. That the best you've got? Shigaraki's eyes went wide. The hand that had just decayed a human skull was still raised. It was shaking. You healed that? I always heal, Yoi. Izuku's hand found Shigaraki's throat. His talons, blue-tipped, burning, pressed against the villain's neck without breaking skin. Yet. That's the thing about me. What's your plan when hitting me does nothing? Shigaraki's answer was to hit him harder. Both hands, full contact, maximum decay. He grabbed Izuku's chest with 10 fingers and poured everything he had into the destruction. Izuku's torso dissolved, his ribcage turned to dust, his heart, his lungs, everything in his upper body disintegrated and scattered. The fire rebuilt it. 3 seconds this time. Faster. Brighter. The Phoenix factor surging harder with each injury as if the destruction was feeding it, making it stronger. Izuku reformed around Shigaraki's hands, his regenerating torso encasing the villain's fingers, and drove his knee upward into Shigaraki's jaw. The enhanced villain's head snapped back, his teeth cracked. Blood flew. Shigaraki skidded backward across the dust field, caught himself, charged again. The fight became a cataclysm. They moved through the destroyed cityscape like 2 storms colliding. Decay waves rolling outward wherever Shigaraki touched, blue fire blazing wherever Izuku moved. Buildings that hadn't been destroyed yet crumbled as Shigaraki sent waves through the earth. Izuku's wings beat with force that cracked what little ground remained intact. The scale of it was visible from miles away. A pillar of blue fire and a spreading gray wasteland, a marking where 2 monsters of different breeds were trying to end each other. Shigaraki was fast. Enhanced by All For One's procedure, his speed was superhuman, closing gaps, dodging strikes, his body moving with a coordination that exceeded his old form by orders of magnitude. He hit Izuku 30 times in 2 minutes. Every hit decayed what it touched. Arm, leg, half his face, a chunk of wing, the left side of his ribcage. Izuku healed all of it. Every time. Without pause, without slowing down. The fight wasn't about surviving Shigaraki's hits. Izuku could survive anything. The fight was about landing something that Shigaraki couldn't recover from, because Shigaraki could regenerate too, now. The procedure had given him his own healing factor, inferior to Izuku's, built from biological enhancement rather than supernatural force, but real. Izuku's kicks broke ribs that reformed. His talons tore flesh that sealed. The Phoenix fire burned wounds that closed. Getting tired? Shigaraki laughed. Blood in his mouth, but laughing. You heal. I heal. We do this forever, but your friends, he gestured at the battlefield around them, at the heroes still fighting liberation soldiers, at the students who were evacuating civilians. They don't heal like us. He sent a decay wave outward, aimed at the evacuation route. Izuku was between the wave and the civilians in a heartbeat. His wings spread, full span, and he planted himself in the wave's path. The decay hit him. His legs went. His lower body turned to dust and scattered. But the wave stopped. It couldn't get past the Phoenix fire, the blue flames burning at the boundary, refusing to let the destruction propagate further. Izuku reformed, standing, the civilians behind him, untouched. He looked at Shigaraki across the field of ash. Okay. His voice was different now. The drowsiness, the lazy, half-asleep persona that made him feel approachable was gone. Underneath was something ancient, something that had been sleeping since a boy ate a fruit on a beach and woke up with fire in his blood. You want to target them, you want to go after my people. He began walking toward Shigaraki. I was going to end this clean, Yoi. Each step left burning footprints in the ash. Fast. One hit. You wouldn't have felt it. Shigaraki, for the first time, took a step backward. But you threatened them. Izuku's wings spread, growing, the fire intensifying, his body beginning the transformation, human proportions expanding, blue fire pouring outward like a sun going nova. So now I'm going to make sure you feel it. He transformed full phoenix form, the real one, the one that shook the earth and lit the sky. 100-foot wingspan of blue and gold flame erupting against the afternoon sun, blazing so bright that every person within a mile had to shield their eyes. The heroes on the ground stopped fighting. The villains on the ground stopped fighting. Everyone, every single person on that battlefield, looked up. The phoenix hung in the sky above the Jakku ruins like a judgment being passed by something older than quirks, older than heroes, older than the civilization that had tried to contain people with power. It was beautiful, terrible, the kind of thing that human language was built to describe but never quite managed. Shigaraki looked up at it. For 1 second, one honest, unmasked second, his face showed what was underneath all the rage and ideology and damage. What was underneath was a boy who had been broken and remade into a weapon and was standing in the shadow of something that weapon could never overcome. Fear, the phoenix dove. Izuku came down on Shigaraki like extinction-given form. His full mass, the weight and heat and force of a 100-foot mythical creature, compressed into a single diving strike aimed at the center of Shigaraki's body. The villain threw his hands up, decay at maximum, a final desperate shield, and the destruction wave met the phoenix fire head-on. The collision point erupted, a shockwave expanding outward in a dome of blue light and gray ash, visible from the next city over, from the cameras of news helicopters circling the perimeter, from satellite imagery that would be studied for decades afterward. The ground beneath the impact simply ceased to exist. A crater 300 meters across opened in the earth like a wound. When the light faded, Izuku was standing in the center, human form. His jacket was gone, burned away entirely. His shirt in pieces, his hair blown in every direction. He had a hand around what remained of Shigaraki's collar. Shigaraki was on his knees. His arms were gone, both of them from the shoulder down, severed by talons during the dive, the stumps cauterized by phoenix fire that was actively fighting the regeneration, trying to grow them back. Blue flames danced along the cauterized edges, preventing regrowth, maintaining the damage. Without hands, decay could trigger, but it couldn't spread. It couldn't aim. The quirk pulsed uselessly at the stumps and went nowhere. Shigaraki looked up at Izuku. His red eyes were wild. His enhanced body was failing. The procedure that made him was fighting against the phoenix fire burning through his system, and the fire was winning. You. His voice was cracked, raw. You can't kill me. You're a hero. Heroes don't kill. I'm still a student, Yoi. Izuku looked down at him, eyes fully open, expression carrying the weight of every person. Shigaraki's decay had turned to ash today. The two sidekicks, the civilians who didn't make the evacuation, all of them. But more importantly, he looked at the crater around them, at the dust that was once a city, at the heroes watching from the rim. You will keep doing this. You will keep coming back. And every time you come back, people die. Shigaraki's mouth pulled into a grin. Bloody. Defiant. Still trying to look like he had leverage. So kill me. Prove you're no better than... Izuku's hand moved. One motion. His palm against Shigaraki's chest. The blue fire concentrated, hot and final, and carrying the absolute certainty of someone who had decided this outcome before the fight started. The flames entered Shigaraki's body at the sternum and spread inward, through muscle, through organ tissue, through the all-for-one enhanced cells that had made him into something other than human. The fire reached his heart and burned it out. Shigaraki's eyes went wide. Then they went empty. Izuku released the collar. The body fell sideways into the ash. Still, final, he stood there for one moment, looking at what he'd done. His expression was, what? Not regret. Not satisfaction, something closer to closing a door that had needed closing for a long time. He looked up at the rim of the crater where heroes were gathering, at the sky, where the last traces of blue fire from his transformation were fading like stars at dawn. There was still work to do. He spread his wings. He flew. The battle at Jakku wrapped up within the hour after Shigaraki fell. Without their leader, the PLF forces at the hospital lost coordination, lost will. Heroes swept through the remaining resistance with the momentum that came from watching the sky light up blue and knowing what it meant. Izuku moved through the battlefield, healing every wounded hero he found, every fallen sidekick who still had breath, his hands on broken bodies, blue fire flowing, mending what was torn, bones setting, blood returning to where it belonged. The gash on Mirko's leg, she'd lost it below the knee fighting a high end before Izuku cleared the Nomu facility, and he knelt beside her, pressed his palms against the stump, and the fire worked. The leg grew back. Muscle and bone and nerve, layer by layer, the fire building from what remained into what should be. Mirko watched it happen with her teeth bared. The sensation was intense, full body, and when it was done, she kicked her new leg experiment. Holy shit, kid! Rest, Yoi. It's fresh. Rest? We're in a war. The war's over here. He stood. Shigaraki's gone. What's left is cleanup. Mirko looked at him. At the 17-year-old standing in an ash crater telling a top 10 hero that the war was over because he had personally ended it. You're something else, Phoenix. I've been told, Yoi. He was airborne again, moving to the next injured person. And the next. And the next. By the time the medical teams arrived in force, every critical wound on the Jakku field had been treated. 37 heroes who should have died were alive because a boy with fire in his hands walked through the aftermath and decided that none of them were going today. Across the country at Gunga Mountain Villa, the second front had gone differently. The PLF's main force was there. Leadership, coordination, most of the frontline fighters. The heroes had hit hard. Battles were raging across the entire mountain compound. But without Shigaraki's direct presence, the villain force was fighting defensively, reactively. They were losing. Mina was there. She was fighting. She was good. Her acid carved through PLF soldiers with precision and creativity, dissolving weapons, melting the ground beneath charging enemies, creating pools and barriers that controlled the battlefield. She moved like she'd been born for this, dancing between threats, her combat instincts honed by a year and a half of training alongside the most powerful person in the country. She was holding a corridor with Kirishima when her phone buzzed. Against all logic, against all protocol, she checked it. A text from Izuku. It's done. He's gone. You okay? Her hands shook for a second. Then she typed back with acid-tinged fingers. I'm fine. Kicking ass. Love you. Love you too, Yoi. Finish up and come home. She put the phone away. Looked at the corridor, at the PLF soldiers still coming. Hey, Kirishima! Yeah! Izuku beat the big boss. What? Already? Already! She grinned, wide, feral, the smile of someone who was absolutely thrilled and absolutely ready to finish her own fight. Let's wrap this up and go home. That's so manly. They charged forward together. The PLF fell, across both fronts. The organization that had taken months to build collapsed in a single day, its leader dead, its infrastructure destroyed, its forces scattered and surrendering. The largest villain operation in Japan's history ended, but there was still one loose thread, one very old, very dangerous loose thread, Tartarus, the maximum security prison, built to hold one person above all others, the person whose shadow had cast every villain in this story. The report came in at midnight, 12 hours after the Jakku battle. The heroes were exhausted. The students were being bussed back to UA. The medical teams were overwhelmed. And into that exhaustion came a communication from Tartarus Security. Breach. Code Black. All containment failed. All for One was free. The prison break had been orchestrated remotely. Deadman switches that Shigaraki's death triggered. Fail-safes built into the system by the ancient villain decades ago. If his successor fell, the prison would open. If the PLF collapsed, the old monster would walk out to finish what it started. He didn't run. That was the thing that the arriving hero teams found most terrifying. He didn't flee. He didn't disappear into the night to rebuild in secret. He walked out, into the open, onto the highway leading away from Tartarus. And he waited. He was waiting for the Phoenix. Izuku got the communication on the bus. He was seated in the back, Aizawa's bus, the class around him, most of them dozing from exhaustion. The message hit his phone and he read it once. His eyes went open. He stood. The bus was moving at highway speed. Aizawa looked up from the front. Midoriya, all for one is free. His voice carried through the bus. Every student who had been sleeping was awake instantly. He's at Tartarus. He's waiting. Aizawa processed this. His face went through something that might have been despair on anyone less stoic. The commission will deploy. They can't handle him. That Izuku was already moving toward the emergency exit. He killed heroes for sport before quirks had a name. A commission response team hits him and they die. You just fought Shigaraki for... And I'm healed, Yoi. That's the whole point of me. He opened the bus's emergency roof hatch. Night air flooded in. His wings came out. Blue and gold against the dark sky, visible to every car on the highway around them. Izuku. Mina's voice. She was on the bus. They'd reconnected at the staging area after Gunga. She was beside him now, hand on his arm, golden eyes looking up at him with everything they had. Come back! He looked at her face, at the person who made everything worth protecting. Always, Yoi. He kissed her forehead. Then he was gone, through the roof, into the sky, wings beating hard and fast toward Tartarus. A blue streak cutting through the night like a falling star in reverse. The class watched him go, through windows, through the open hatch, 20 pairs of eyes tracking the blue fire until it disappeared over the horizon. Mina stood under the open hatch, looking up at the empty sky. Come back, she whispered again. He would. The highway outside Tartarus was empty, evacuated by the prison break protocols, streetlights throwing orange pools across asphalt, the sound of distant sirens, distant helicopters, the machinery of a response that was already too late. And standing in the road, one man, all for one. He was everything the villain reputation promised and more. Tall despite the years of imprisonment, the life support mask on his face hissing steadily, the scarred, destroyed features beneath it hidden from the world. His suit was prison issue, but he wore it like a boardroom. His hands were clasped behind his back. His posture was straight. He radiated something. An aura, the accumulated weight of a man who had been stealing powers and destroying lives since before Izuku's grandparents were born. Standing near him felt like standing near something wrong. Something that the universe had been trying to correct for decades and kept failing. Izuku landed in the road, 50 feet away. His wings folded, but didn't disappear. The blue fire running along their edges cast the empty highway in shifting light. They regarded each other. The Phoenix. All for one's voice was smooth, old, carrying the patient amusement of someone who had centuries of experience with this exact kind of confrontation. I've wanted to meet you. I know, Yoi. Izuku's hands went into his pockets. The remnants of his costume, torn from the Shigaraki fight, already regenerated where it mattered, hung from his frame. Took you long enough to come out. I was waiting for the right moment. Shigaraki's death, unfortunate but clarifying. He was always going to fall short. All for one tilted his head. You, though, you are something I haven't encountered in a very long time. I get that a lot. Do you know what you are? A mythical zone. Beyond that, beyond the classification. All for one took one step forward, his presence pressed against the air like a physical weight. I have lived for over 200 years. I have seen quirks emerge. I have seen the world reshape itself around superhuman ability. I have stolen more powers than any being in history. His voice dropped. And in all that time, all those years, all those stolen abilities, I have never encountered something like you. Flattered, Yoi. It's not flattery. Another step. It's curiosity. Your power resists everything. It cannot be erased. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be destroyed. It simply is. His head tilted the other way. I've tried to understand you through my agents, through Stain, through the Nomu, through Shigaraki. Everything I sent against you came back broken. Maybe stop sending things, Yoi. All for one laughed. The sound was warm and genuine and absolutely wrong. The kind of laugh that belonged to a grandfather coming from a monster. I could, but where would be the fun? His hands came from behind his back, gloves off, the fingers long and scarred and carrying within them the stolen power of hundreds of lives. I think instead I'll try myself, one last time, because if nothing in my collection can break you, then I need to know. For the first time in centuries, I need to know. His hands rose. The first attack came with everything. Air cannons, Kinetic amplifiers, force multipliers, impact reversal, a stored energy quirk that could level buildings compressed into a single burst aimed directly at Izuku's chest. The pressure wave that preceded the actual attack blew the asphalt off the road surface in a 10-foot radius. The attack itself hit like a wall of pure force. Concentrated, massive, the kind of blast that had killed symbol-class heroes in the past. It hit Izuku square in the chest. His body went backward, sliding, feet tearing grooves in the road. His chest caved from the impact, ribs breaking inward, organs ruptured, the physical damage catastrophic for the fraction of a second it existed. The blue fire surged, rebuilt. 3 seconds and he was whole. Standing where the force had pushed him, 40 feet back from where he'd started, unmarked, unharmed. His jacket was gone, vaporized by the pressure wave, but his body was perfect. He looked down at his bare chest, at the smooth, regenerated skin where a cavity had been. That one actually stung, yoi. All for one paused. Then he fired again, everything in his arsenal. Hundreds of stolen quirks used in combination, fire and force and energy and matter manipulation and gravity distortion and everything he had accumulated over centuries of theft. He fired them in waves, in combinations that created effects greater than their parts. In sequences designed to overwhelm even the most extreme regeneration, Izuku took them. All of them. He walked forward through the assault, his body destroyed and rebuilt itself dozens of times in the first minute. His face disintegrated and reformed. His arms were blown off and grew back. His legs dissolved and reconstructed from blue fire that poured upward from the stumps like fountains. He kept walking, step by step, through the onslaught, through the impossibility, through the absolute everything that the most powerful villain in history could produce. All for One's attacks began to thin. The combinations shortened. The power behind each blast diminished, by fractions, by degrees. The ancient villain was spending his reserves. For the first time in his immortal life, he was emptying the magazine against something that simply would not go down. Izuku was 20 feet away now. Walking, wings out, fire blazing at his shoulders and along his arms, eyes open, fully open, looking at All for One with an expression that held neither anger nor triumph nor satisfaction, just certainty. You asked what I am. Izuku stopped, 10 feet from the most dangerous person who had ever lived. You spent over a year trying to figure it out, sent your people, studied me, built weapons for me. All for One's hands rose again, shaking now, the fingers trembling with the first fatigue they'd felt in decades. And the answer is simple. Yoi. Izuku raised his own hand. The blue fire concentrated at his palm, brilliant, dense, the color of deep sky and burned gold. I'm the thing that was always going to stop you, because that's what a phoenix does. He tilted his head. It outlasts, it endures, it burns beyond everything that tries to put it out. All for One fired one last attack. Everything remaining, the very bottom of the barrel, every stolen quirk, every reserve, every ounce of power scraped together in a final, desperate strike. Izuku's hand met it. The blue fire consumed the attack, ate it, absorbed the energy and burned brighter for it, a phoenix feeding on what was meant to destroy it, growing stronger from the assault. Izuku's palm blazed white-blue. The air around him rippled. The highway surface beneath his feet melted and then reconstituted as the fire passed through it. He pressed his hand against All for One's chest. The villain tried to grab his wrist, tried to activate his quirk-stealing ability, the power that had defined his existence, that had made him the king of the underworld, that had allowed him to dominate the world for centuries. His hand touched Izuku's arm. The stealing ability reached for what was inside him, reached for the devil fruit, for the phoenix, for the power that lived in Izuku's soul. It found nothing to steal, because the phoenix wasn't a quirk. It had no quirk factor. It existed in a system that All for One's ability couldn't interface with. It was like trying to grab smoke, like trying to steal the temperature of a room, like reaching for something that existed in a place your hands could never touch. All for One pulled his hand back. The mask was damaged, cracked from the pressure of Izuku's approach, sparking at the edges. The scarred face beneath was partially visible. His mouth, what was left of it, was open. For the first time in 200 years, All for One was looking at something he could not overcome. What are you? His voice was a whisper now. The arrogance burned away. Just the question remaining. Just a very old man asking the one thing he'd never been able to answer. I already told you, Yoi. Izuku's palm pulsed. The blue fire entered All for One's body at the sternum. It spread inward, finding every stolen quirk, every modification, everything that the villain had taken from someone else over centuries. And it burned them, one by one, layer by layer. The fire recognizing each stolen power as something that didn't belong, as damage to the world's natural order, and healing the world by removing them. All for One screamed, the first genuine scream of his immortal life. The stolen quirks burned out of him like disease being purged, each one dying in blue fire, each one releasing its hold on his cells and vanishing. His body convulsed, his regeneration, stolen like everything else, failed as the fire consumed it. His enhanced strength left, his life extension left. His durability left. Layer by layer, the most powerful villain in history was reduced to what he actually was underneath all the theft. A very old man in a broken body with nothing left. Izuku held his hand there until the last quirk burned away, until All for One's body was empty, until there was nothing left to sustain the organism that had persisted far beyond its natural span. All for One collapsed. His body hit the asphalt with the sound of something very old finally coming to rest. The mask fell away. The face beneath was old, ancient, a face that had accumulated centuries of damage and been hiding it behind stolen regeneration. A face that was, now, what it should have been a long time ago. The eyes stared up at nothing. Empty, it was done. Izuku removed his hand, looked at the body, looked at the sky, the stars visible between the city lights, the night clear and cold. It's done, Yoi. Sirens, getting closer. The response finally arriving. Helicopters overhead, their spotlights finding the highway, finding the green-haired boy standing over the greatest villain of the modern era. Izuku waited for them. He sat down on the road, cross-legged, hands on his knees, the blue fire dimming to its resting state. The gentle flicker at his fingertips, the warm glow that was always present. He was tired, in the way that has nothing to do with the body, the tiredness of carrying weight and finally being able to set it down. The war was over. The threats that had been building since USJ, since Stain, since Hasaikai, since the training camp, all of them were gone, erased, ended by hands that could heal anything except the things that deserved to burn. The heroes arrived. All Might was with them, in his emaciated form but present, having insisted on being there for this. He walked through the cordon, past the officers, past the response teams, down the highway to where Izuku sat. He stood over his student, his successor in spirit, if not in power. Young Midoriya. All Might. Izuku looked up, managed the half-smile. It's over. All Might looked at the body behind Izuku, at the villain who had haunted his career, his nightmares, his every waking moment for decades. The villain who had killed his master, who had nearly killed him, who had cast a shadow over the entire hero industry for generations, dead. On a highway. Ended by a boy with blue fire and the conviction to use it. All Might's thin frame shook, his sunken eyes filled with something that looked like decades of weightlifting from his shoulders. He knelt beside Izuku, put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Thank you. His voice broke on the second word. Thank you. Izuku looked at his mentor, at the man who had been everything he admired as a child, at the hero who could finally rest. You're welcome, Yoi. They sat there, on the highway, under the stars, the sirens approaching, the world learning that it was safer than it had been in a century, together. The aftermath was complicated in the way that endings always are. The world didn't know how to process what had happened. Two villains, the two most dangerous people in the country, arguably on the planet, killed in a single day by a 17-year-old hero student. The news cycle couldn't contain it. The internet couldn't contain it. The hero industry couldn't contain it. Opinions divided. The talking heads on television argued. Some praised Izuku as the savior of hero society, the person who had done what decades of professional heroism couldn't accomplish. Others questioned the killing. Was it necessary? Was there another way? Should a student have been in that position? The Hero Public Safety Commission convened. Izuku was called in. He sat across from a table of officials in a conference room that was trying very hard to feel important. 6 people in suits, badges, documents, the weight of institutional authority pressing down on the proceedings. The chairperson spoke first. Mr. Midoriya, you are here to discuss the events of I know why I'm here. A pause. The chairperson adjusted his glasses. Very well. The commission has questions regarding your decision to use lethal force against Shigaraki Tamura and the individual known as All for One. Izuku sat in his chair, slouched, half-closed eyes, the posture of someone who was respecting the process but wasn't intimidated by it. Ask, Yoi. Did you attempt non-lethal resolution before engaging with lethal force? Against Shigaraki, he was decaying city blocks, killing heroes mid-fight. His range was expanding every second. Izuku's voice was even. Containing him was impossible. Restraining him was impossible. Every second I spent trying would have been a second someone else died. And All for One? He had 200 years to be rehabilitated. He spent them stealing and killing. He built the villain infrastructure that caused every major attack in this country's history. Izuku looked at the commission. Putting him back in Tartarus would have been a countdown to him escaping again. The commission members exchanged glances. The chairperson cleared his throat. Do you believe you acted within the bounds of heroic conduct? Izuku was silent for a moment, considering the question with more weight than his expression suggested. I stopped 2 people who were going to keep killing until someone stopped them. I made sure they couldn't do it again. He exhaled. Slow. With all respect, if you'd like to send someone stronger next time, I'll wait, Yoi. The room was silent. The commission had nobody stronger to send. They knew it. He knew it. Everyone in that room understood that the framework they were operating under, the rules, the procedures, the careful delineation of acceptable force, had been written for a world that didn't include Izuku Midoriya. And now it had to accommodate him, because the alternative was telling a phoenix it couldn't fly. He was cleared. The paperwork took 3 days. The news announced it. Phoenix cleared. Hero Public Safety Commission rules actions justified. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. 73% approval in the first poll, 81% by the end of the week. The people, the civilians who had watched their city turn to dust, who had lost homes and businesses to the PLF's violence, had already decided. The Phoenix had protected them. The debate was for bureaucrats. The night he was cleared, Izuku walked into the Heights Alliance common area to find it already full. Everyone was there. All of Class 2A, arranged across couches and chairs on the floor with food and drinks, and the energy of people who had been holding their breath for days and could finally exhale. Kaminari had somehow acquired a banner, hand-painted, terrible, reading, "Welcome back, Phoenix Man," in letters that varied wildly in size. Phoenix Man? Izuku read aloud. We couldn't decide on a hero name, so we went with what felt right, Kaminari explained. It feels wrong. Noted. We're keeping it. He was pulled into the room, onto the couch, food pressed into his hands, voices from every direction. You're really cleared? Like officially? The news said you. Bro, the internet right now. How do you feel? Are you okay? Like actually? He fielded it all with the same energy he always did. Short answers, half smiles, the occasional yoi that made people laugh because it was so completely, perfectly him. Kirishima grabbed his shoulders from behind the couch. Both hands, squeezing Izuku. Brother, man. His eyes were wet and he was fighting it valiantly. What you did out there, the healing, the fighting, all of it. You're gonna cry, Yoi. I'm not crying. My eyes are just... Shut up. He was crying. Nobody pointed it out. Several other people in the room were also crying and choosing to pretend otherwise. Todoroki appeared beside the couch, tea in hand, as always. His face was warmer. Different from the boy who had entered UA with ice on one side and anger on the other. Something had settled in him over the past year. Something that the Phoenix Fire had started and time had finished. Midoriya. Todoroki. I spoke with my mother today. He paused, sipped his tea. She wanted me to tell you something. What's that? She said, tell the fire boy that the world is gentler because of him, and that he's welcome for dinner anytime. Izuku blinked. Something in his chest went warm. Tell her I'll be there, Yoi. Todoroki nodded, the ghost of a smile on his mismatched face. She'll hold you to that. Bakugo, the blonde, was in the corner, arms crossed, leaning against the wall. His face was its usual mask of competitive fury, but something underneath had shifted. The way ice shifts when the temperature rises just barely enough. He wasn't looking at Izuku, he was looking at the room. At the class gathered around the green-haired boy who had started as the target of his contempt and become something that Bakugo's vocabulary didn't have a word for. He pushed off the wall, walked to the couch, stood in front of Izuku. The room went tense, old habits. Bakugo looked at Izuku for a long moment, his jaw working, his fists opening and closing at his sides. You, his voice was rough, forced, each word a physical effort. You did what the rest of us couldn't. Izuku looked up at him. Bakugo. Shut up. I'm not done. His teeth ground together. I spent years trying to be stronger than you, trying to catch up, trying to find a way to bridge a gap that I knew was getting wider every single day. The room was holding its breath. And today I watched you kill the two worst villains alive, and I can't. His voice broke, just for a moment. Just a crack. I can't catch you. I know that now. Izuku opened his mouth. But I'm going to be the number 2 hero. Bakugo's red eyes burned, wet at the edges but burning. Right behind you. Close enough to watch your back, because somebody has to, and it's going to be me. Got it? The room was silent. Izuku looked at Bakugo, at the boy who had told him to jump off a roof, who had burned his notebooks, who had spent years making him feel worthless, who was standing in front of him now with tears he'd never admit to, and a declaration that amounted to, I respect you. I'm with you. I've chosen my place. Izuku's hand came up. Held out. Got it, Kachan. Bakugo looked at the hand, his face twisted through about 14 emotions in 2 seconds. Then he grabbed it, squeezed. Hard. The handshake of rivals who had finally found the same page. Don't call me that. Sure thing, Kachan. I said don't. The room exploded into noise. Cheers and laughter and Kaminari literally falling off his chair. The tension broke like a wave and washed away, leaving behind something lighter. Something that had been a long time coming. Aizawa was at the front of the room, standing with his capture weapon loose around his shoulders, watching his class with an expression that, if you squinted, if you knew where to look, might have been pride. He met Izuku's eyes across the room. One slow nod. Everything. And Mina. She appeared from behind the couch. She'd been back there the whole time, sitting on the floor out of sight, letting the class have their moment. She climbed over the back and landed in Izuku's lap with zero grace and absolute certainty, her arms going around his neck, her face pressing against his. Hi, Yoi. You came back. I said I would. You did. She pulled back enough to look at him, her golden eyes searching his green ones, finding what she was looking for. You're okay. For real. For real. She kissed him. In front of the entire class. Nobody looked away. Several people cheered. Kaminari took a photo. Kirishima was crying again. When she pulled back, she was smiling, the kind of smile that illuminates everything it touches. You're mine, she informed him. Been yours, Yoi. Just reminding you. Consider me reminded. She settled against him, head on his shoulder, horn bumping his jaw in the familiar way, his arm around her waist. The couch, the class, the evening stretching out ahead of them with nothing to do and nowhere to be. This was what he'd protected. This was what all of it was for. This. 2 weeks later, on a day when the campus was going about its normal rhythm, Izuku walked into a hospital room in the residential ward of a private facility and sat down across from Todoroki Rei. Shudo was there, standing by the window. His posture was tense in the way of someone bracing for something important. Rei sat in bed. She was beautiful in the way that fragile things are beautiful. Her white hair falling over thin shoulders, her eyes the same gray as her son's right eye. She looked at Izuku with an expression that was half curiosity, half hope, half fear. You're the fire boy. Her voice was soft. Izuku Midoriya, ma'am. He bowed slightly from his seat. Your son asked if I could try something. I want to be honest, I don't know exactly what I can do here. He told me. She looked at her hands, thin, pale. My mind, it's been unwell for a long time. The fire heals bodies. Izuku leaned forward, his hands resting on his knees. Minds are different. The brain is a body part. I can address physical damage, chemical imbalances, structural issues. He paused. What happened to you? The trauma, the memories, those live in a place the fire might touch but can't erase. I don't erase them. I don't want them erased. Her voice was firm, surprisingly firm. They happened. I lived them. She looked at the window, at the light. I want to feel well enough to go home. Izuku nodded. He extended his hands, palms up, glowing. Then let me try, Yoi. Ray looked at his hands, at the blue fire dancing across them, warm, visible, alive. She reached out, her fingers touched his palms. The fire spread gently, up her arms, over her shoulders, across her temples, where the brain lived, where the damage was physical in the way that years of stress and anguish leave physical marks on neural tissue. The fire found inflammation, cortisol damage by the synaptic connections that had been degraded by prolonged psychological distress. Things that medications managed but couldn't heal, the fire healed them. Ray gasped. Her eyes went wide. The warmth, Mina had described it once as bath heat, sunshine heat, washed through her head like someone had turned down a noise she'd been hearing for so long she'd forgotten it was there. The persistent buzz of anxiety that colored everything. The fog that made thinking feel like swimming through sand. The weight that made some mornings impossible to face, easing, lifting, going away. Izuku held the connection for 5 minutes, working through what he could find. The physical damage, the stuff that was body, that was measurable, he addressed. He left the rest alone. The memories, the emotional content, the things that were hers to process in her own time with her own strength. When he pulled back, Ray was crying. She pressed her hands against her temples. How does it feel? Like waking up? Her voice broke. Like I've been underwater and someone pulled me out. Shadow was beside her in a heartbeat, his hands on her shoulders, his face, that stoic, controlled face that held so much behind it, cracking open. The tears coming without permission. Mom, Shadow, she grabbed his hands, held them, looked at him with eyes that were clear, present, here, in a way that they hadn't been since he was a small child. My boy, my beautiful boy. Izuku stood, he moved toward the door, giving them this moment. This was theirs. At the doorway, Shadow's voice caught him. Midoriya. Izuku looked back. Thank you. 2 words. Carrying the weight of a decade of watching his mother suffer behind glass, Izuku shrugged. Already half asleep on his feet, the energy expenditure catching up. Anytime, Yoi. He walked out, down the hallway, into the elevator. His phone buzzed. Mina. How'd it go? Good. She's going home soon. Izuku, I'm crying. In public. At the mall. Why are you at the mall? Irrelevant. I'm crying. He smiled, leaned against the elevator wall, let the tiredness settle into his bones for a moment. The elevator doors opened. He walked out into the sunlight, into the afternoon, into a world that was getting better, one healed person at a time. The school year rolled on. Graduation approached, the distant, inevitable endpoint that made everything feel temporary and permanent at the same time. Third-year students were making plans. Agencies were sending recruitment offers. The hero industry, restructuring in the wake of the PLF's collapse, was hungry for new blood. Izuku's offer pile was absurd. Every major agency, every top hero, endorsement deals, international inquiries, government positions, research organizations. The pile grew faster than he could read it. He ignored most of it. On a Thursday evening, the kind of evening where the sky goes orange and the air goes still and everything feels like a held moment, Mina found him on the roof. He was there more often these days, sitting on the edge with his wings out, letting them catch the wind like sails on a ship going nowhere. His eyes were half closed. His face was at peace in the way it always was, because peace was his default, the state he returned to when the world wasn't demanding otherwise. She climbed through the access door, sat beside him, their shoulders touching immediately. They sat in comfortable silence for a minute. 2, the wind moved through them. So, she said finally, graduation. What do you want to do? He opened his eyes, looked out at the city below them. The lights coming on, building by building, the world settling into evening. He was quiet for a long time. I want to keep going, Yoi. His voice was soft, honest. The version of himself that only existed up here with her. Wherever there are people who need healing, I want to be there. She listened. Waiting, and I want you there too. She went very still, her shoulder pressed harder against his, like she was anchoring herself to the moment. Was that a confession or a job offer? Both. She laughed. The sound was bright and surprised and full of something enormous. She turned to look at him, and he was looking back. His eyes were open, all the way open, the way they went when something actually mattered. You're asking me to. Start an agency with me, live with me, be beside me. He said it the way he said everything, even, warm, certain. You talk about a small agency, community level, doing work that matters. I've been listening, Mina, every time you talked about it. He shrugged. Let's do it. Her eyes were filling. Her smile was shaking. Her hands found his face, cupping his jaw, her thumbs against his cheeks, holding him like he was something precious and real, and hers. You know I'm going to be impossible to live with, she said. I know. I talk too much. I know. I will redecorate everything. I know. And you're fine with all of that? He looked at her, right at her, the full weight of his attention, the thing that made villains freeze, that made the strongest people in the world feel seen, focused entirely on the pink-skinned girl with yellow horns and golden eyes who had grabbed his hand on the first day of school and refused to let go. Yeah, Yoi. She kissed him. His wings, already out, already catching the wind, curled around them both. The blue fire glowed brighter, warmer. The roof lit up in azure and gold, visible from the grounds below. On the training field, Kirishima looked up, grabbed Kaminari's arm. Is the roof on fire? Kaminari squinted. I think those are just the wings. Oh, a pause. That's so manly. Dude, it's romantic. Romance is manly. They watched the blue glow for a moment longer, then went back to training. Smiling, above them, two people on a roof, wrapped in phoenix fire, making plans for a future they'd build together. Everything after that was denouement. Graduation happened. Caps thrown, speeches given. Aizawa told the class, his face absolutely unchanged, his voice its usual dry monotone, that they were adequate. Coming from him, it was essentially a standing ovation. All Might shook Izuku's hand at the ceremony. Both of his thin hands wrapped around Izuku's one. He said nothing. His eyes said everything. The torch, passed. The legacy, honored. The world, safer. The agency opened 6 months later. A small building in a coastal city, warm climate, beach nearby, exactly what Mina had described years ago on a campfire evening. The sign on the door was green. The interior was welcoming. Mina's doing, every corner of it, from the color scheme to the furniture to the small potted plant on the reception desk that she talked to every morning. Izuku took cases that other agencies turned away. The ones that were too dangerous, too strange, too outside normal parameters. Villains with powers that made them unkillable. Izuku could match that and exceed it. Hostage situations where any force risked civilian lives. Izuku could enter without risk to himself and heal anyone caught in the crossfire. Disaster zones where conventional rescue was impossible. A phoenix could fly through anything. Mina ran the front desk. Also, the social media. Also, the branding. Also, at some point, the scheduling, the finances, the PR, and the increasingly complex task of managing their growing reputation. The agency had more followers online than most national hero teams within a year. She considered this her greatest personal achievement. Their dynamic hadn't changed. It would never change. Izuku, your wings are out again. It was morning. Their apartment above the agency office. Coffee on the counter, sunlight through the windows. Izuku was on the couch, still in the clothes he'd slept in, which meant no shirt because he'd gone hybrid in his sleep again, and his wings had manifested and destroyed another top. He was comfortable. The wings were draped over the couch like enormous blue feathered blankets. His eyes were closed. His coffee was cooling on the table. They're fine, Yoi. Mina picked up a sock from the laundry pile. She threw it at the nearest wing. It caught fire. Izuku. His eye opened. One eye, the other remained firmly closed. I'll buy new socks. This is the 3rd pair this month. I'll buy a lot of new socks. She put her hands on her hips. The pose, the one she'd been using since UA, the one that meant she was pretending to be angrier than she was. He watched her over the rim of his cooling coffee with the half-closed eyes and the almost smile and the bone-deep contentment of a person who had found exactly what they were supposed to find. You're going to bankrupt us on socks, Mina. We own a hero agency. We can afford socks. That's not the point. What's the point? The point is that you sleep like a bird, and it's annoying. You said last week you liked sleeping in the wings. Her blush went from normal pink to deep pink in under a second. That's different. How is it different? Because when I'm in them, they don't set my laundry on fire. He sipped his coffee. The smile behind the rim of the cup was visible. She saw it. She climbed over the back of the couch, same as always, same as the first time, same as every time since, because Mina Ashido had never used a path when a shortcut existed, and landed half on him, half in the nest of wings, the impact jostling his coffee enough to spill a drop on his bare chest where it sizzled against skin that ran 3 degrees hotter than human normal. She stole his coffee, drank from it, made a face. This is cold. It was warm. Make me a new one. You're on top of me, I know. So I can't get up. I know. He exhaled. The exhaled. The one that contained everything, amusement and love and the eternal acceptance of a man who had made his choices and would make them again every single time. His wings shifted, curled around her. The fire running along the feathers dimmed to its lowest setting, warm, safe, the gentlest version of what he was. She settled into it, into him, her head on his chest, the coffee forgotten, the burned sock smoldering somewhere across the room. You're impossible, he told the top of her head. You love it. Yeah, Yoi, I do. She smiled against his chest. He closed his eyes. His wings held her. The fire burned low and steady and eternal. Outside the window, the city, the people, the world that was safer than it had been because of what Izuku Midoriya carried and how he chose to carry it. The hero whose name was spoken the way legends get spoken, with certainty, with awe, with the comfortable knowledge that he was real and present and watching. In the agency below their apartment, the phone rang. A case. Something strange. Something that needed a phoenix. It could wait 5 minutes. Everything could wait 5 minutes, because right now, in this apartment, on this couch, wrapped in wings of blue and gold, the strongest person in the world was holding the person he loved. And the fire burned warm, and the morning was gentle, and the sock was still on fire, but that was a problem for later. Mina Ashido laughed at something. A private joke, an inside reference, something that only made sense to the two of them. The sound was bright and alive and full of everything good that the world had left. Izuku Midoriya smiled, eyes half closed, at rest, at peace. The phoenix, alive in every sense of the word, everything that survived, everything that burned eternal, everything that was worth protecting, protected. The fire held, and miles away in schools and agencies and living rooms, people told the story, the way stories get told, with awe, with warmth, with the certainty that someone out there was watching the sky, that if the blue fire appeared overhead, everything was going to be okay. Because the phoenix was there, and God help anyone who tried.
The hero roster. A massive salute to the legends backing this journey. Your support is what keeps the momentum at an all-time high and the dream moving forward. You guys are the absolute best. Pro heroes, the elite front line, stepping up and setting the pace for the whole community. DA, Fire 05.
Symbol of peace. The pillars of the community, the titans who keep our foundation solid and the hype at an all-time high. Aries Bryant, Jonah Wheeler, T-Mac, XXHJRI3AS7X, Wolf, Hyper Beams, Michael Murphy, Grand Region Kell, Sin Hunter, Deshaun Jones, Logan Bland, Alexander Johannes, Alex Morgan, Ray Various, Blaze, That Other Guy Too, Chad Reynolds, Zachariah Allison, T. Mackey 68 Rimuru, Nuh-uh, Kelvin Bowman, AZ Othros, Dweller of the Deepest Depths, Lone Wolf, The Lone One, Jacob Rops, Bully McGuire Shadow, Ameri B, Neostar Productions, Aciel Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Thunder, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddie Rose, Omega, Akuma no Akami, Chris Talley, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SK8er, Akeno Himejima, Corey Tokars, Kwan Yen Thompson, Yan, Devin Black, Crow, Dasher Games, Joe Bros, Rai Von Crimson River, Dante Alistor, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, Howie 60, Ignacio, Carlos Terry, Hope of the universe, the ultimate guardians, celestial tier supporters whose impact literally shines across the galaxy. Void Rot, Chaos Umbre, Noroi Uzumaki Uchiha, Keishon, Tayshawn Palmer, Coldbane 4, The Maniac 563, Debs, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, Ike's Shoot 50, Greg Green, James, Juan, Zeno KJ. If you enjoyed watching Izuku Midoriya turn the entire MHA verse into his playground, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're cooking more unfiltered Phoenix Deku content. Next time, he's probably breeding the whole hero roster. Drop a comment. Who should the Phoenix clap next? Thanks for watching, legends. Stay dangerous.